Chapter 259, Surging Situation. Chapter 259, Surging Situation. The first thing Shifeng did after entering God's domain was to contact Gentle Snow and conduct the transaction for the Arclight shields. Currently, he had exhausted most of his supply of magic crystals to forge the Arclight shields. Moreover, during this period of time, the various large guilds had already started raiding the 3 level 10 large-scale team dungeons. Although the elite members of these guilds had already reached level 13 or level 14, it was still impossible for them to raid even the normal mode of the 3 large-scale team dungeons. Even though these were only level 10 dungeons, in reality, the bosses inside were not limited to just level 10. The highest leveled boss inside the normal mode dungeon reached level 13. There was nothing special about the loot of the normal mode dungeon. The best items players could get were a bunch of level 10 secret silver weapons and equipment, and also some number of materials needed by lifestyle players. However, the hard mode of the large-scale team dungeon was markedly different. The main reason why they were titled the 3 Great Dungeons was because of the fact that, along with the increase in difficulty, the levels of the monsters inside the dungeon would also increase. For the hard mode of the 3 Great Dungeons, the bosses inside were all level 15. Hence, it would not be an easy endeavor for players at this stage of the game to obtain the first clear of the 3 Great Dungeons. In addition, the loot obtainable from the hard mode of these dungeons was significantly different, as a majority of the weapons and equipment dropped were of fine gold rank. Moreover, they were growth-type weapons and equipment. They were capable of growing from level 10 to level 15. However, they were bound to players upon equipping. As for Hell mode, the bosses inside were all level 18, and the weapons and equipment they dropped were mostly dark gold rank. These items were also capable of growing from level 10 to level 18, and similarly were bound to players upon equipping. The Hell mode of the 3 Great Dungeons was also the most difficult among dungeons below level 20. After level 20, there would be new large-scale dungeons available to players within the White River City region. There were a total of 4 such dungeons, and among them, 3 were 50-man dungeons, while the remaining one was a 100-man dungeon. The difficulty of a 100-man dungeon was on an entirely different level when compared to a 50-man dungeon. The main reason being, as long as someone managed to obtain the first clear of a 100-man dungeon, the achievement would be announced to the entire God's domain. The announcement wasn't just limited to a single country. In other words, this achievement would be seen by the 2 billion players that were playing God's domain. In addition, the achievement would be recorded in the epic list of God's domain, allowing everyone in God's domain look at it. However, it was extremely difficult for players to obtain the first clear of a 100-man dungeon. Even Shifeng himself did not have a strategy to raid it. Gentle Snow pushed open the doors of one of the parlors of the Starstreak trading firm and entered the room. Gentle Snow's equipment now was quite different from the last time Shifeng had met with her. Most of the equipment she had on were of secret silver rank. Among them, the silvery white greatsword that she carried on her back was even of fine gold rank. Currently, Gentle Snow had already reached level 16. It was obvious that she had been grinding non-stop, night and day, to reach such a level. "Let's hurry up and make the trade," Gentle Snow said impatiently, not bothering to even take a seat. "It seems that you are in quite a hurry, Miss Snow. Did something happen?" Shifeng asked curiously. This was a transaction involving fine gold ranked shields. It was definitely a matter of utmost importance. However, it seemed that Gentle Snow had an even more important matter to attend to. "It's nothing much. I just heard that Darkstar has already reached the second-to-last boss of the Land of Death, so I wish to be done with this trade quickly. In a moment, I'll need to head to the Land of Death as well." Gentle Snow did not try to hide the reason for her distress. The number 1 guild in White River City was actually a step behind Darkstar, a third-rate guild, in terms of raiding one of the 3 Great Dungeons. How could she not feel anxious? They sure are fast. Since when did Darkstar possess such powerful experts? Shifeng felt something fishy about Darkstar. First, it had annexed over 10 unrated guilds. Now, a group of experts had appeared in its ranks. Its raiding progress of the 3 Great Dungeons was even faster than Ouroboros's. It should be known that Ouroboros was the current number 1 guild in White River City. Moreover, In order to better develop the guild in White River City, Gentle Snow had transferred over many experts stationed at Starmoon City. She had even requested for a party from the Godslaying Army to be sent to White River City, and each and every member of the Godslaying Army was a top-tier expert. Yet, even when these top-tier experts were led by great experts such as Gentle Snow and Zhao Yueru, they still were not a match for Darkstar. Each of the 3 great dungeons had 5 bosses. Meanwhile, Darkstar had already cleared up to the 4th boss, while a powerful team like Ouroboros was only at the 2nd boss. No matter how Shifeng thought about it, Darkstar's progression was simply unbelievable. The difference between second-rate guilds and first-rate guilds lay in the quality of their experts. In order to nurture these experts, first-rate guilds had spent over a decade researching and gaining experience. Meanwhile, for a guild like the Assassin's Alliance, although it was a second-rate guild, in terms of nurturing experts, it was still at the stage of accumulating experience. Compared to a first-rate guild, they were on entirely different levels. However, what did Darkstar amount to? Moreover, Shifeng had made Darkstar an enemy of the first-rate guild Twilight Echo. Yet, nothing had actually happened to Darkstar. Shifeng had received no news of anything happening to it. On the other hand, Twilight Echo had done something so unbelievable that even Shifeng himself was shocked. The guild had actually paid the 50 million credits willingly to Shifeng. Thinking up to this point, Shifeng felt that the power supporting Darkstar from behind was far stronger than he had imagined. Twilight Echo must have discovered something about Darkstar for it to willingly pay up the 50 million credits. Here are 200 magic crystals. Here are the 4 Arclight shields, please verify them. Gentle Snow was no longer in the mood to discuss Darkstar. She immediately called out her trade window. Shifeng, likewise, tactfully stopped speaking of this topic. Seeing Gentle Snow in such a hurry, it seemed that Darkstar was putting quite a pressure on her. It was possible that Gentle Snow's worries were not just limited to the dungeon, there should be some other matters troubling her. In any case, this had nothing to do with Shifeng. Of course, if Gentle Snow was willing to reveal her troubles to him, Shifeng would naturally offer a helping hand, as a friend. However, Gentle Snow chose to keep quiet about them, so Shifeng could only remain silent as well. Moreover, these 4 Arclight shields should provide quite an upgrade to the MTS of Gentle Snow's team. They should have no problems surpassing Darkstar if they had these shields. The moment Gentle Snow inspected the attributes of the Arclight shields, her eyes immediately glowed, a hint of joy surfacing on her face. Excellent! The attributes on these Arclight shields are simply too good. I will need 2 more of these items. I wonder when you will be able to finish them for me. At this time, excitement was evident on Gentle Snow's face. With these 4 shields, they would definitely have no problem clearing the 2nd boss. The success rate for producing these shields is simply too low. I will need around half a day's time to complete 2 of them, Shifeng replied after giving it some thought. Then, I'll visit again in half a day's time. You better not sell them to anyone else. Gentle Snow nodded her head. She then left the parlor hastily. Shortly after Gentle Snow departed, Fire Dance arrived at the Starstreak trading firm. Guild leader, we've already finished our dungeon raiding preparations. We can head to the demon's castle at any time. Fire Dance looked at Shifeng with passionate eyes. She couldn't help but wish she could immediately show Shifeng how amazing the team she managed was. It's a little too early for that right now. The Demon's Castle is a 20-man team dungeon. You should also know that Zero Wing Workshop has recently recruited a new batch of members. On average, the level of these players are quite low. There are even some who have just made their accounts and entered the game. I want you guys to power level some of them, bring them up to level 15 quickly, and form a main team to raid the Demon's Castle, Shifeng said with a smile, passing Fire Dance a name list. Originally, Shifeng had intended to have Aqua Rose send some of her subordinates over to aid them. However, most of her subordinates were currently managing the new recruits of the guild. In addition, Aqua Rose's group was also in the midst of raiding 10-man and 20-man dungeons to upgrade their equipment, preparing themselves to raid the 3 great dungeons. They had neither the time nor energy to help him raid the Demon's Castle. Hence, Shifeng planned to form a main force for the guild. He could not let the 9 top-tier experts he just recently recruited go to waste, so he decided to let Fire Dance and the others carry them. I understand, Fire Dance answered with disappointment. However, when she thought about how Chiffon was willing to let her lead even more players and, in addition, become the leader of the guild's main team, she couldn't help but grow joyous. After all, this showed that Chiffon acknowledged her abilities. Oh, right. I nearly forgot to give these things to you. Just as Fire Dance was about to turn around and leave, Chiffon tapped his head and suddenly called out to her. Chapter 260, Top 6. Chapter 260, Top 6. Fire Dance halted her steps and turned around to look at Chiffon. She immediately noticed that Chiffon had brought a few items, and each and every one of them had a golden glow surrounding them. They certainly did not look like ordinary items. This pair of daggers is for you. There's also this shield for Cola. Tell him to make sure he lives up to this shield. Chiffon traded the 3 items to Fire Dance. Of these, the pair of daggers were none other than the fine gold ranked Ice Thorn and Raging Flames dagger that Chiffon won at the Blackwing auction. As the team leader of the guild's main force, Fire Dance's equipment naturally should not lose out to others. These 2 daggers were just right to give a boost to her current equipment. In addition, there was also the dark gold ranked Arclight Guard. If Cola equipped this shield, no other Guardian Knight in White River City could even hope to match him. This, Fire Dance was instantly mesmerized by the attributes of the 2 daggers. Although the daggers she currently used were of relatively good quality, when compared to the Ice Thorn and Raging Flames dagger, the difference was like silver and gold. Fire Dance swapped out her old daggers for the new ones right away. The streaks of white and red hanging on the sides of Fire Dance's willowy waist looked extremely captivating. I've already instructed the 9 players to head to the appointed location. You just need to fetch them and help them level up, Chiffon said. I understand, guild leader. Fire Dance nodded her head, a smile on her face. She then took hold of her new daggers, brandishing them, the impatience in her eyes clearly showing her eagerness to test out her new weapons. After Fire Dance left the parlor, Chiffon headed to his forging room on the 4th floor. Now that he had received a new batch of magic crystals, he would naturally resume forging more Arclight shields. As time slowly passed, unknowingly, the competition at the 3 great dungeons of White River City grew even more intense. Darkstar, which was at the forefront in terms of progression, finally started raiding the final boss of the Land of Death. Meanwhile, Ouroboros, which was placed second, started raiding the 4th boss. The advance of these 2 guilds greatly shocked the other guilds in White River City. What did that woman, Gentle Snow, eat? How could their progression suddenly increase so rapidly? The Guardian Knight, Lone Tyrant, felt pressured after receiving the latest report from his subordinate. Don't worry. We spent almost 5 hours raiding the 4th boss. At the very minimum, Gentle Snow would need 2 to 3 hours to finish it. We will definitely clear the dungeon a step ahead of her, the burly-looking ranger standing beside Lone Tyrant said. That's true. We've sent all our elites out this time, and our battle prowess is clearly stronger than Gentle Snow's team by a notch. Lone Tyrant also felt that he was being oversensitive to things. They would definitely be the first one to clear the normal mode of the Land of Death. Although there would be no announcement for being the first to clear a normal mode team dungeon, it would still make other guilds know how fearsome Darkstar was, solidifying their position in White River City. Guild leader, I've just received news that Gentle Snow has somehow managed to obtain 4 Arclight shields. The addition of these 4 shields to their team has greatly reduced the burden placed on their healers, giving more time for the damage dealers to attack. Hence why they could conquer the bosses so easily. Arclight shield? Isn't that the forging design Black Flame got? How could he possibly manage to produce them in such a short amount of time? Lone Tyrant had not even been able to contain his drool when he had heard about Black Flame obtaining the forging design for the Arclight shield. If possible, he had planned to buy one of those Arclight shields as well. However, contacting Black Flame was simply too difficult, making the Arclight shield almost impossible to obtain. Meanwhile, the matter of Ouroboros obtaining the Arclight shields had also quickly spread to the other guilds. They couldn't help but grow envious at this piece of news. The victory or defeat of a boss battle was usually determined by the strength of the MT. Meanwhile, the prerequisite for a powerful MT was equipment. It was especially true for the shield the MT used. Currently, only a few main MTS of the various large guilds possessed secret silver ranked shields. However, despite having such a shield, these MTS still had a very hard time tanking the bosses of the 3 great dungeons. If they could swap it out for a fine gold ranked shield, it would undeniably reduce the pressure placed on them, instantly reducing the difficulty of the raid by a large margin. Ouroboros was the best proof. After all, during today's competition for the Land of Death, although a latecomer, Ouroboros had still managed to clear the normal mode dungeon ahead of Darkstar. This achievement dumbfounded every guild in White River City. As for Darkstar's lone tyrant, he was currently burning with rage over this matter. He had secretly prepared so much, all in order to surpass Ouroboros. In the end, however, he was instead given a big slap to the face by Ouroboros. Soon after, the various large guilds in White River City started asking around, hoping to find out from the members of Ouroboros what method they used to obtain the Arclight shields. Some guilds had even directly created forum posts offering several hundred thousands of credits to purchase an Arclight shield. Looking at this scene, many players felt that these guilds had gone insane. They were actually willing to spend so much money just to buy a fine gold ranked shield. However, this bottom line was, very quickly, broken by a guild. 1 million credits. It was a number that inspired awe in ordinary people. Meanwhile, the goal of spending such a large sum of money was to purchase the Arclight shield. How could this piece of news not bring shock to others? At the same time, the guild offering such an insane price was none other than Darkstar. The players who discovered this matter thought the people of Darkstar were idiots with too much money in their pockets. However, when Shifeng saw Darkstar's offer, he couldn't help but inwardly praise them for their shrewdness. Aside from trying to purchase the Arclight shield, they had also made the post with the intention of directing players' attention towards Darkstar. If they truly managed to purchase the shield for 1 million credits, it would definitely become the subject of conversation for many players. This method they were using was much more effective than directly spending money to create advertisements. A million. Unfortunately, I'm not lacking in credits right now. Shifeng did not intend to let Darkstar gain both fame and fortune by selling the Arclight shield to them. However, this incident also revealed to Shifeng the fact that the various large guilds were starting to pay more importance to the first clear of the 3 great dungeons. If Shifeng had sold the Arclight shields at an earlier time, he definitely would not have obtained such a high price for them. However, due to Ouroboros's efficiency, the various large guilds thought that they could easily clear the normal mode of the 3 great dungeons so long as they possessed the Arclight shield. They could also have a better chance at obtaining the first clear of the 3 great dungeons. After working for half a day, Shifeng managed to produce 6 Arclight shields in total. He had also made a large number of basic mana armor kits. Out of the 6 shields he made, he stored 3 in the guild warehouse, allowing guild members to exchange for it. However, it would not be easy to exchange for these shields. After all, if sold outside, one could get at least 25 gold for it. The sight of 3 Arclight shields appearing in Zero Wing's guild warehouse brought the newly recruited members even greater hope, despite their not being able to obtain it for themselves. At the same time, Shifeng's actions nearly caused the other guilds in White River City to vomit blood in anger. After all, instead of letting the MTS of the guild use these excellent shields, Shifeng had chosen to put them on display. It was as if these Arclight shields meant nothing to Zero Wing. Just recently Zero Wing created a sensation throughout White River City. Now, its member count had already exceeded 5,000. It also had the 8 great experts holding down the fort for them. Zero Wing's strength could no longer be categorized within the levels of only second-rate or third-rate guilds. Now that Zero Wing caused another sensation in White River City, many players could not help but re-evaluate their opinion of Zero Wing. When players tried to further investigate Zero Wing, they were immediately shocked by what they found. Not only was Zero Wing home to the 8 great experts, it also had Aqua Rose, a great expert who was no weaker than the snow goddess, Gentle Snow. In addition, there was also a rumor that the leveling expert, Shifeng, was overseeing the guild. With so many experts there, Zero Wing's strength within White River City did not lose out to the 3 first-rate guilds in the slightest. Although it was weaker than the first-rate guilds in terms of dungeon raiding, it had an extremely huge potential for growth. Unwittingly, Zero Wing had become publicly acknowledged as one of the top 6 guilds in White River City. The top 6 guilds were Ouroboros, Emperor's Light, World Dominators, Darkstar, Assassin's Alliance, and Zero Wing. Among these guilds, Ouroboros, Emperor's Light, and World Dominators were all first-rate guilds, and each of them possessed very powerful backgrounds. Even if only a portion of their actual strength was stationed in White River City, second-rate and third-rate guilds were still far from being comparable to them. Shortly after this incident, Shifeng exchanged another 2 Arclight shields with Gentle Snow. He then placed the remaining one for sale at the Starstreak trading firm. 30 gold, no negotiations. If converted to credits, one could obtain 30 gold coins simply by spending around 600,000 credits. However, it would still require some effort to fully gather 30 gold coins. Meanwhile, Shifeng had reached level 17 unawares just by forging items. Although his leveling speed was not as fast as that of Blackie and the others, who grinded on monsters on a higher level, nobody else in White River City could be a match for him. Guild leader, they're now all level 15 already. Moreover, we've also raided a few hard mode team dungeons, so their equipment are all of acceptable quality now. What should we do next? Fire Dance spoke through the communicator. Nicely done. Gather up everyone from the main team. Let's meet up at the Demon's Castle half an hour from now. Shifeng was a little surprised by Fire Dance's revelation. He never imagined that Fire Dance would bring him results so quickly. Originally, Shifeng had estimated that she would take a full day's time to complete the task. In the end, she barely took half a day to complete his request. It was completely beyond his expectations. Chapter 261, Magnificent Lineup. Chapter 261, Magnificent Lineup. What? You're saying Starstreak is selling an Arclight shield right now? Are you sure about this? Lone Tyrant grew excited when he received this piece of news. Boss, how could I be mistaken? The Arclight shield is being sold at a special counter on the 2nd floor, but they're selling it for 30 gold coins. Many people were stunned by the price, and they could only drool as they looked at it, an assassin that kept watch on the Starstreak trading firm affirmed. I understand. I'll go purchase the coins we need right now. You can stop lining up for the mana armor kits for now. Go keep an eye on the Arclight shield for me. You're not allowed to take even a half step away from it. As soon as I gather enough money, I'll send someone over to buy it, Lone Tyrant said. Although 30 gold coins was not a small sum for any guild, Lone Tyrant did not hesitate as he made this decision. The reason being, Lone Tyrant knew how vital the Arclight shield was. If one wished to clear the 3 great dungeons, one must first possess a sufficiently powerful MT. Meanwhile, the best shield available to players was currently the Arclight shield. Hence, he needed to obtain it no matter what. Just as Lone Tyrant received this piece of news, the other guilds based in the 8 cities where the Starstreak trading firm had shops also received this information, because all items sold by the Starstreak trading firm were interconnected. As long as an item was sold in one of the shops of the Starstreak trading firm, the item would also appear in the 7 other shops. As a result, the competition to purchase the Arclight shield was made even more intense now. Just as the many guilds were desperately raising coins, Shifeng had already arrived in front of the Demon's Castle. The Demon's Castle was once a lord's territory. However, the lord of this place had been bewitched by a demon and turned into a demon himself, gaining tremendous power in return. The lord had then turned this place into a demon's lair. Now, the area surrounding the Demon's Castle was filled with level 15 or so demonkins. Compared to other monsters, demon-type monsters were born with very high magic resistance, and they also possessed very high magical perception. Hence, their magic attacks were very powerful. Even a normal fireball from a level 15 demonkin could take away a quarter of a level 15 berserker's total HP. If it was a skill that possessed great destructive force such as the Great Fireball or Flame Explosion, then a single attack could take away half of a level 15 berserker's total HP. To make matters worse, These demunkins never acted alone, they normally moved around in groups of 3 or 4. If a solo player met a group of these demunkins, the result would be an instant kill. Hence, players normally only came to the demon's castle after forming a party or a team. However, even though this was a dangerous location, many players still chose to come here. As demons were greedy by nature, they were very fond of money and gemstones. In general, demon-type monsters had a much higher drop rate for money and gemstones than normal monsters. Hence, plenty of players would grind here. A Tier 1 gemstone could sell for roughly 1 silver coin on the market. It was neither too cheap nor too expensive. However, many players were not willing to inlay their equipment with these gemstones. After all, gemstones were one-time use items, they would be gone once inlaid into equipment. Hence, it would be a huge waste to do so if the quality of their equipment was too poor. Generally, players would only choose to inlay gemstones into their equipment if it was of mysterious iron rank or above. However, how many players could actually get their hands on mysterious iron equipment? A majority of the players at this stage of the game were still using bronze equipment. Who would be willing to inlay gemstones into bronze equipment? Normally, players would either sell the gemstones they obtained or exchange them for items to further enhance their own strength. After all, grinding monsters would exhaust a significant amount of their resources, with equipment repairs taking up the majority. However, this situation was exactly what Shifeng had been hoping for, hence why he had been secretly purchasing gemstones all this time. A Tier 1 gemstone only increased attributes by a trivial amount, they only increased 1 point in specific basic attributes. Even if a player inlaid every piece of equipment they wore with gemstones, they would not see any significant improvement. However, in the case of Tier 2 gemstones, it was an entirely different story. Tier 2 gemstones increased specific attributes by 2 to 3 points. If players could fully inlay all their equipment with Tier 2 gemstones, then they could obtain an additional 20 to 30 attribute points. The difference between the benefits provided by a Tier 1 gemstone and a Tier 2 gemstone was as clear as day. Such an increase was the equivalent of possessing an additional piece of equipment, thus, the prices for Tier 2 gemstones would naturally be high. Although Tier 1 gemstones could only sell for around 1 silver, a Tier 2 gemstone could sell for at least 10 silvers. Also, Shifeng knew of a secret that nobody else knew right now. Tier 1 gemstones could be used to synthesize Tier 2 gemstones. Moreover, only 3 Tier 1 gemstones were needed to do so. In truth, this wasn't any great secret at all. As long as someone managed to clear the 3 great dungeons, the alchemy synthesis system would be unlocked for White River City. Players could then just head to an alchemist to synthesize Tier 2 gemstones. At that time, the prices of Tier 1 gemstones would abruptly soar. They would sell for at least 3 to 4 silvers. For now, however, nobody but Shifeng knew of this secret. Meanwhile, Shifeng had been hoarding Tier 1 gemstones non-stop as he waited for someone to activate the alchemy synthesis system. Once that happened, he could easily earn back double or triple the original cost. However, Shifeng hoped that this time the activation of the alchemy synthesis system would come a little later. That way, he would have more time to hoard even more Tier 1 gemstones. Through the Starstreak trading firm, not only could Shifeng obtain Tier 1 gemstones from White River City, he could also purchase them from 7 other cities. His current acquisition rate was much faster than before he became the manager of the Starstreak trading firm. Naturally, the longer it took for players to clear the 3 great dungeons, the more money he could earn. Guild leader, what did you call me here for all of a sudden? Aqua Rose asked in a confused tone as she arrived at the entrance of the Demon's Castle dungeon. As a 20-man level 15 team dungeon, there were very few guilds that possessed the strength to challenge this place right now. However, even if these guilds did possess the strength to do so, they would not attempt to raid this dungeon. The reason being, they were all held up by the hell mode of the level 10 team dungeons, and also the 3 great dungeons. Moreover, the level requirement for the Demon's Castle was simply too high. Also, if they were unable to clear the hard mode of the Demon's Castle, raiding it would bring little improvement to their team's equipment, making it a waste of time. It would be much better for them to place their focus on the hell mode of level 10 team dungeons. Hence, Aqua Rose felt curious as to why Shifeng would call her to this place. Of course, it is to raid the demon's castle, Shifeng said, chuckling. Aqua Rose was shocked by his words. Immediately, she said, Guild leader, isn't it a little too early to raid the demon's castle? It would be better for us to focus on raiding the level 10 Hell Mode team dungeons. Although our guild started slower than the others, we can still try to compete with the other guilds over the 3 great dungeons. No. Aqua, our guild will not be competing over the 3 great dungeons. Our goal is the level 20, 100-man dungeon, the Thunder Palace. So, we need to start preparing for it now. Once we're done with this raid, you should get everyone to level up as quick as possible. Don't intentionally suppress their levels. It won't be a worthwhile thing to do, Shifeng said, confidence filling his eyes as he shook his head. Aqua Rose was rendered speechless by Shifeng's words. She couldn't help but sigh as she felt pessimistic about Shifeng's whimsical thoughts. Let alone the 100-man dungeon, Thunder Palace, it was not even possible for them to obtain the first clear of the demon's castle. Although she believed in Shifeng's strength, the equipment of their team was simply insufficient. They're here. Shifeng looked towards a group of a dozen or so players walking over. They were none other than Fire Dance and her team. They. Aqua Rose turned towards the direction Shifeng was looking at and was immediately shocked by what she saw. She discovered more than 10 players walking over, each of them looking extremely dazzling. It was especially true for the sexy beauty walking in the lead. The 2 daggers by the woman's waist were actually giving off the glow of a fine gold-ranked weapon. In addition, quite a few members of this team also possessed gorgeous-looking equipment. They all wore secret silver equipment. Although the Cursemancer of this team had hidden the special effects of his staff, judging by the delicate make of the weapon, it should be of fine gold rank at the very least. As for the team's Guardian Knight, the equipment he wore were mostly of secret silver rank, with 2 pieces of fine gold equipment mixed in. Although the Guardian Knight had likewise hidden the special effects of his shield, based on looks alone, it shouldn't be lower than secret silver rank. It was possible that not even the main force of Ouroboros could compare to this dazzling team. When Aqua Rose took a closer look at this group of players, she was surprised to discover that each and every of them sported a 6-winged emblem. They were actually members of their 0 wing. Aqua Rose's delicate mouth suddenly parted in disbelief. Guild leader, I've brought everyone here, Fire Dance said, walking up to Shifeng. She and the other core members of 0 Wing already knew about Shifeng's secret identity. Hence, they were not confused by his appearance as Black Flame. Good. Leave your teams and I'll send an invite to all of you. Shifeng nodded in reply. Chapter 262, We Are Very Strong. Chapter 262, We Are Very Strong. Aqua Rose was shocked. They are the 8 players at the top of the ranking list. Aqua Rose whispered in silence. Although she did not use any identification skills on these players, aside from the top 8 players, she could think of no other members of 0 Wing that could possibly possess such excellent equipment. Yeah. Shifeng nodded his head. He then started inviting Fire Dance and the others into his team. There were a total of 17 players in Fire Dance's team. Aqua Rose had also brought along a good friend of hers, Icy Fruit. Aqua Rose had chosen her upon Shifeng's request for a healer who was level 15 or above. Shifeng had exactly 20 members in his team now. Of them, 2 were MTS. One of them was the Guardian Knight, Kola, while the other was Yi Wumian, who was a shield warrior. There were also a total of 4 healers in the team. It was a standard composition for a 20-man dungeon raiding team. Just as Shifeng was about to enter the dungeon, another team came walking over to the dungeon's entrance. The members of this team were out of the ordinary. Let alone possessing mysterious iron equipment as their lowest ranked equipment, there were also several of them with secret silver equipment. This was a sight impossible to be found in an independent team. Yet, contrary to expectations, these players were not guild players but independent players. None of them wore a guild emblem on their bodies. War Wolf. Fire Dance said in astonishment when she saw the slim-looking man walking over. Oh, is it an acquaintance? Whether it was his memory of this life or his past life, Shifeng had no recollection of the man who looked to be the leader of this team. However, if these players were able to come into possession of such quality weapons and equipment, they could definitely be considered an expert team. In theory, they should not be unknown existences. Could they have stopped playing midway in the past? Shifeng inwardly wondered. "Hello. We meet again," War Wolf said in greeting, looking at Firedance. "After not meeting for some time, I never imagined that Miss Firedance would have joined a guild." "No. In truth, we were originally members of this guild. It was only due to some complications that we did not establish the guild before," Firedance explained. "Let me introduce you. This man here is our guild leader, Black Flame." What a shock. So it turns out that Your Excellency is none other than the famous chief forger of Starmoon Kingdom, Black Flame. War Wolf was somewhat taken aback by this revelation. Although he had long since known that Firedance and the others were not ordinary players, never would he have thought that their guild leader would be such a well-known character. "Team leader War Wolf is the one who has left me in shock. You are actually starting to raid the level 15, 20-man team dungeon already. The teams that are capable of diving into the demon's castle at this time definitely belong to the apex of White River City." Although Shifeng had never heard of War Wolf before, a person capable of leading such a team definitely would not be a mediocre person. Shifeng suddenly had the urge to recruit this team of players. "Fortunately, we are only an independent team, and it's impossible for us to compete with those guilds over the first clear of the 3 great dungeons. So, we can only choose to come here. Since guild leader Black Flame has something to do, we won't continue bothering you." War Wolf did not possess any good feelings towards guilds, so he immediately brought his team into the dungeon after speaking a few perfunctory words. "This person's attitude is really weird. The previous time we met, he was welcoming when he spoke to us. Now, he only said a few words before taking his leave. Isn't this change in attitude a little too much?" Blackie said in an unhappy tone. "He probably doesn't like guilds too much." Shifeng revealed a helpless smile as he looked at War Wolf entering the dungeon. There were all kinds of people in God's domain, and naturally, there were bound to be some who disliked guilds. After all, most guilds usually acted in an overbearing manner. Many players just wanted to experience the world of God's domain, so they weren't all that interested in guilds. Meanwhile, many of these players who were wholeheartedly chasing after adventure were surprisingly powerful. Among them, the most famous adventurer team in the past was the Midnight Tea Party. Although there were only 20+ members in the team, not a single guild in God's domain dared to underestimate this adventurer team. Even super guilds had to draw a clear line with the Midnight Tea Party, both sides minding their own businesses. Obviously, War Wolf belonged to this type of adventurer. "I guess it can't be helped. Everybody has their own aspirations," Shifeng silently lamented. "There sure are a lot of powerhouses in White River City." Aqua Rose was astonished to find that there were actually so many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in White River City. Soon after, Shifeng and the others had also entered the demon's castle. However, Shifeng had chosen a different difficulty from War Wolf's teams. Hell Mode, a difficulty that made all players pale when they talked about it. Yet, Shifeng had chosen it without much thought. Aqua Rose was momentarily rendered speechless. She couldn't stand it anymore. Shifeng was always taking unconventional actions. This was the Hell Mode of a 20-man team dungeon. At the very least, they should have started with normal mode to familiarize themselves with the dungeon. They could then start accumulating better equipment from hard mode, before finally challenging Hell Mode. However, Shifeng had started with Hell Mode right from the very beginning. Just what did he think of a Hell Mode dungeon? Even if they had powerful experts in their team, they couldn't just be so reckless. Did Shifeng forget the fact that almost half of the members in this team still didn't possess particularly good equipment? Meanwhile, these players in question were none other than the 5 demon generals and the 4 experts from Greenleaf Workshop. Although they had already reached level 15, and were also fully geared in mysterious iron equipment, they were still far from reaching the requirement to raid the Hell Mode of the Demon's Castle. Hence, these 9 players reacted with panic when they realized Shifeng's decision. As this was Hell Mode, the monsters inside the castle all received an upgrade. Even the normal elite monsters could cause one to tremble. Meanwhile, such monsters were wandering around in groups inside the castle corridors. Demon Maid, Elite Rank. Level 15. HP 80 000 80 000. Good at magical attacks, particularly fire-type damage. Demon Butler, Elite Rank. Level 15. HP 100 000 100 000. Good at melee attacks. Of these two types of monsters, the Demon Butlers were more difficult to deal with, as they would ignore aggro when they used charge. In addition, when their charge connected, they would also inflict a debuff called Blood Curse, causing players to continuously lose HP. Also, due to this being Hell mode, the debuff was further strengthened. When afflicted with this enhanced Blood Curse, players would lose 300 HP every 3 seconds, and receive 10% additional magic damage for 30 seconds. The debuff was also stackable up to 10 times. To make matters worse, demonic beings were born with high magic resistance, making them extremely difficult to deal with. Alright, Cola, go pull some monsters. Yi Wumian, you'll act as support for Cola. Healers, pay attention to the MT's HP and remember to cast Dispel when necessary. As for everyone else, just focus on your damage output, Shifeng instructed casually. Guild leader, I suggest that we should take things slowly. After all, this is a Hell mode dungeon, not a normal mode. Even if Cola's equipment is excellent, we still can't act so recklessly. Aqua Rose was close to collapsing from Shifeng's carefree attitude. It's okay, Shifeng said, smiling. We are very strong. Shifeng had a clear grasp on the strength of this team, hence his carefree and confident attitude. Cola was currently level 18, and with the Arclight Guard equipped, his HP had already reached 3,340 points. His defense was even a frightening 2,300 points. In terms of attributes, not a single MT within White River City could match him. The elite monsters inside the dungeon were only at level 15. With 3 levels of suppression, these monsters could hardly harm Cola at all. Meanwhile, Cola did not hesitate in carrying out Shifeng's orders. Immediately, he rushed at a group of monsters, raising his shield and throwing it at them. In a blink of an eye, the shield struck 5 elite monsters, causing over 300 damage and placing a silenced effect on each of the monsters, preventing them from using magic for 6 seconds. Shortly after, the shield returned to Cola's hands. Before coming to this dungeon, Cola had experienced luring over 100 level 25 monsters. Of them, there had been no lack of elite monsters. Compared to those times, the few elites before him were hardly worth mentioning. These demonic monsters simply had slightly higher HP and slightly more powerful skills. All of you, come over. Cola executed Justice Roar, compelling monsters within a fixed range to attack only him. Letting out angry roars, the demon maids at a distance had no choice but to attack Cola. As if he had transformed into a steel wall, Cola fully blocked the charge of the 3 demon butlers and 4 demon maids. Cola then used the group aggro skill Devotion. As the sacred aura provided by the skill dealt holy damage, it inflicted amplified damage on the 7 demons. Every second, the 7 demons would receive 200 holy damage. Before long, the aggro Cola had on these monsters was unshakably stable. On the other hand, the demon butlers only dealt around -240 damage with each of their attacks, while the demon maids dealt around -400 damage with their magical attacks. However, Cola managed to dodge the majority of these attacks by utilizing his nimble footwork, greatly reducing the damage he received. As a result, only Violet Cloud was actually required to maintain Cola's HP above a safe threshold. Meanwhile, the other healers and Yi Wumian could only watch helplessly on the sidelines. No way. Aqua Rose's delicate body trembled slightly. Currently, the excitement she felt could no longer be described with words. Chapter 263, Like a Hot Knife Through Butter. Chapter 263, Like a Hot Knife Through Butter. __. The task that originally required 2 MTS to accomplish was now handled by Cola alone. Moreover, it was obvious that Cola still had energy to spare. Fire Dance, go lure another wave. Yi Wumian, assist Cola and attract the aggro of the demon maids. Shifeng determined that they would have no problems handling 2 waves of monsters at once, and that it would be much more efficient to do so. Although the demon butlers would frequently inflict the blood curse on Kola, with 2 clerics taking turns casting Dispel on him, the debuff was not a particularly big problem. Moreover, the 2 clerics in the team were very skilled. It was especially true for Violet Cloud. After undergoing the baptism of the Trial of Gods, it was as if she had been reborn anew. It was no wonder she had become a Tier 6 cleric god shortly after clearing a 6-colored trial. Although she had only cleared a 4-colored trial this time, it was already a remarkable feat. The rewards she obtained from the trial also included permanent attribute increases, enhanced skills, weapons, equipment, and other precious items. Currently, in terms of healing power, no other healer in White River City could match Violet Cloud. After Fire Dance lured another wave of monsters, Kola immediately aimed his shield at the 3 demon butlers and threw it, executing the Shield of Vengeance. The skill caused over -300 damage to the demon butlers, and their aggro instantly switched from Fire Dance to Kola. Immediately after, Yi Wumian used Flame Charge on the 4 demon maids at the back, stunning them. He then followed up with a Thunderclap, lightning flickering and electrocuting the 4 demon maids and causing close to -100 damage to them. Yi Wumian's damage was clearly much worse than Kola's. The demon maids grew furious at being attacked, and one of them shot a flame explosion at Yi Wumian right away, engulfing the shield warrior in brilliant flames. Yi Wumian had to retreat 2 steps before he could shake off the attack. His HP abruptly decreased by a large chunk as a damage of over -700 appeared above his head. Yi Wumian had a maximum HP of 2,580 points, while his defense was 1,875 points. When compared to all the other shield warriors in White River City, he could definitely be counted as a top-tier expert. After all, Yi Wumian was originally the boss of Jinhai City's #1 workshop. The original equipment he used was already of good quality. In addition, Fire Dance had also helped them upgrade their equipment by raiding a few hard-mode dungeons. Currently, most of Yi Wumian's equipment were of Mysterious Iron rank, while 3 were of Secret Silver rank. The items that were of Secret Silver rank were his shield, breastplate, and leg guards. Yet, even with such equipment, his attributes were still far from being comparable to Kola's. Strong. When Aqua Rose witnessed the difference between Kola and Yi Wumian, she could not help but look at Kola, who was handling 10 monsters simultaneously, in shock. Before, when Aqua Rose watched how effortlessly Kola had lured and tanked the monsters, she had even believed for a second that they were not actually in a 20-man hell mode dungeon. However, now that she had witnessed Yi Wumian tanking, she immediately woke up from her stupor. This was indeed hell mode. Kola was simply too powerful, making the monsters look weak instead. It was no wonder Shifeng was confident enough to challenge the hell mode of the demon's castle right away. With such a powerful MT, it was not impossible for them to start from hell mode. Healers, prioritize healing Yi Wumian. Everyone else, focus your attacks and kill the demon maids first. Shifeng immediately rushed into the fray after saying so, aiming for one of the demon maids. Leave it to me, Blackie said excitedly. It was finally his turn to display his strength. He then waved his epic ranked staff, Mavis's Guard, sending a bombardment of spells at the demon maids. Blackie's firepower spoke for itself. Each one of his dark arrows caused -964 damage to the monsters, and critical hits caused -2,106 damage. If the effect of his staff, Spear of Light, triggered, he could also deal around -800 additional damage. Blackie then used Hell Flame, dealing over -1,000 damage every second to all targets within a 10-yard radius of the targeted location. If demons did not possess high magic resistance, the damage of this spell would have been even higher. Compared to Blackie, Aqua Rose's damage as an elementalist was much weaker. Every time she used Flame Explosion or Chain Explosion, she could only deal -670 damage or so. Aqua Rose felt slightly depressed at this scene. After all, she used to be an honorary elder of Twilight Echo, yet her damage was actually lower than Blackie's by over 300 points. However, Aqua Rose did not know that Blackie held an epic ranked staff in his hands. If she were to find out about it, she would definitely jump in shock. As for the other mags in the team, the damage they dealt was all above -500 or so. As for the melee players, Fire Dance stood out the most. Although she only dealt around -280 damage with her normal attacks and her skills dealt around -460 damage, her attack speed with the two daggers was extremely fast. When she attacked a demon maid, not only was the demon maid unable to use any spells, its HP also madly decreased. After Fire Dance accumulated 8 stars worth of energy, she immediately used Eviscerate on the demon maid, dealing over -2,400 damage to the monster. As for Lonely Snow the Berserker, although his weapon was only a level 15 secret silver ranked two-handed axe, his normal attacks still dealt over -500 damage, his attacks that achieved a critical hit dealt over -900 damage. However, when compared to an assassin, his attack rate was much lower. In regard to the damage output of the 8 great experts of Zero Wing, the newly joined 5 demon generals and the 4 experts from Greenleaf Workshop had long since grown numb of it. Not to mention, the power the experts of Zero Wing showed right now was only the tip of the iceberg. Just as Aqua Rose and Icy Fruit were getting over their shock, Shifeng's damage once again blew their minds away. Shifeng looked just like the Grim Reaper when he brandished the Abyssal Blade and the Silver Lake, sweeping through the monsters like a violent tornado. Just his normal attacks alone dealt over -350 damage. However, that was not the end. When his attacks achieved a critical hit, they dealt over -700 damage. Sometimes, triple critical hits would even appear, dealing over -1,000 damage in a single attack. Meanwhile, due to Shifeng's high attack rate, the chances for double critical hits were also very high. It was a very pleasing sight to behold. Shifeng then used Thundering Flash, 3 arcs of lightning passing through all the elite monsters. Instantly, damages of -510, -721, and -1020 appeared above the monsters' heads. Some of the monsters had even received critical hits, multiplying the damage they received by 2-fold, and even 3-fold. Immediately after, Shifeng activated Dark Violent Dance, the skill enabling him to spread 40% of the target damage towards enemies within a 12-yard cone in front of him. Every time he slashed his sword, the 14 elite monsters behind his main target would receive over -100 damage. If he executed the level 10 chop, the 14 monsters would instantly receive over -300 damage. Although Shifeng's damage was frightening, it was not his most amazing aspect. Instead, the area he excelled at the most was his perfect grasp of timing and the overall situation. As long as these elite monsters showed the slightest signs of leaving the group, he would immediately execute Thunder Flame Explosion, placing all these elite monsters into a fainted state. As a result, the 2 MTS would have more time to react to the situation, readjusting their positions and retaking the aggro of the monsters. Although Aqua Rose had long since known of Shifeng's strength, she still could not help but be shocked when she personally witnessed Shifeng's damage output. After killing these 2 waves of elites, Shifeng took a look at the team's damage output list. I'm no good anymore. It's been too long since I upgraded my equipment. I never thought I would deal only this little damage. Shifeng smiled bitterly. Although Shifeng's total damage ranked at the very top of the team, his damage exceeding even Blackie's, in terms of single attack output, he was far from being Blackie's match. All this time, Shifeng had been busy making money and increasing his guild's backing. Hence, he did not get much of a chance to upgrade his own equipment. Presently, he was still using the level 10 Mysterious Iron set equipment, the Wind Extinguisher set. He only had 3 pieces of secret silver equipment on his entire person, and they were even level 10 equipment only. Shifeng depended mainly on the Abyssal Blade and his pseudo-extraordinary item, the Blazing Meteor, to produce his frightening damage. Without them, he would only rank around 5th or 6th place at best within the team. However, Shifeng's words had immediately earned him the contemptuous gazes of everyone in the team. If Shifeng, who ranked first in terms of damage output, said he was no good, then what were they supposed to be? Following which, under Shifeng's command, everyone advanced deeper into the castle, killing hundreds of elites and a dozen or so special elites. Of the latter, the demon hounds were extremely ferocious. Moreover, these demon hounds moved in groups of 4. Fortunately, Cola was capable of tanking 3 of these monsters at once, leaving the remaining one to Yi Wumian. If Kola had not been sufficiently strong, they would have definitely team-wiped. Naturally, the team's harvest was also bountiful. Aside from a few Tier 1 gemstones, and bronze, and mysterious iron equipment, they had also obtained 2 pieces of secret silver equipment. One of them was a cloth armor chest piece for elementalists, which was promptly distributed to Aqua Rose. The other item was cloth armor shoes for clerics. As Violet Cloud already had excellent equipment, she had no need for the shoes at all. Hence, the equipment was given to the other cleric in the team, Icy Fruit. The profits of a 20-man Hell Mode team dungeon is truly high. We have obtained so many mysterious iron equipment just from the elite monsters. The special elites even drop secret silver equipment, Aqua Rose exclaimed. Just the harvest they reaped from arriving at the first boss was already comparable to the harvest of raiding a hard mode team dungeon. If they could kill 1 or 2 bosses this time, they would definitely make a huge profit. It's still too early to get excited. Save your joy for after we finish raiding this boss before us. Shi Feng's pupils contracted, focusing his gaze towards the center of the arena. A tall heavy-armored knight with bloodshot eyes stood there, an aura of bloodthirst surrounding it. Knight Captain Justin Freed, demonic being, Lord rank. Level 16. HP 880 000 880 000. Chapter 264, Nemesis. Chapter 264, Nemesis. Such a high HP. Aqua Rose couldn't help but wrinkle her brows at this sight. The amount of HP a boss was correlated with the amount of time needed to kill it, and the more HP a boss had, the higher the demands on the damage dealers. The bosses of level 10, 20-man Hell Mode team dungeons would have 700,000 HP at maximum. Even so, not a single team in White River City had managed to clear one such dungeon yet. Meanwhile, the boss before them had 880,000 HP. Aqua Rose instantly felt despair at this sight. Fire Dance and the others, on the other hand, felt nothing much about it. They were simply waiting for Shi Feng's orders. Feeling everyone's fervent gaze on him, Shi Feng smiled as he said, "Kola, go test the waters. Gluttonous mouse, you'll be responsible for healing him. Everyone else, pay close attention to the boss's movement patterns and habits, be sure to take a video recording. Afterwards, we'll think of a way to raid it." As the Knight Captain of the Demon's Castle, Justin Freed excelled in melee combat. Even though Kola boasted excellent equipment, he could survive 3 hits at most from this boss. If it were any other MT, they would definitely die in 2 hits. Aside from possessing high attack power, Justin Freed was a heavy-armored knight and his defense spoke for itself. Now that he had been converted into a demon, his natural magic resistance was also very high. Justin Freed was practically a boss without weaknesses. Justin Freed had 2 major skills, and if not taken with caution, either one of these skills could easily wipe out their entire team. Moreover, these 2 skills were further strengthened by the Hell Mode difficulty, making them extremely hard to deal with. The first skill was called Demon Summoning. Periodically, Justin Freed would summon 3 demon guards. If players failed to kill these 3 demon guards within a set amount of time, they would be absorbed into Justin Freed's body, replenishing the boss's HP. In the hard mode difficulty of the dungeon, each demon guard would heal Justin Freed of 3% of his maximum HP, while in Hell Mode, that percentage was increased to 5%. Hence, players needed to kill these demon guards no matter what. The second skill was called Death Blow. When using this skill, Justin Freed would randomly mark a player and throw a spear at them, dealing large amounts of damage. Players struck by this spear would also have their movement speed reduced by 60%, and defense reduced by 100%. Justin Freed would then charge towards this marked player. During this charge, players had to avoid standing between Justin Freed and the marked player. Otherwise, both the marked player and the players standing in Justin Freed's way would die without question. Hence, when a player was marked by Justin Freed, they needed to run as far away from everyone else as possible. The marked player would be fine as long as they could survive Justin Freed's onslaught for 10 seconds. Just these 2 skills alone would already cause many challengers to despair. However, Justin Freed also possessed multiple other minor skills, although those would not be a huge problem if players made sure to dodge them. After Cola and Gluttonous Mouse battled with the boss a few times, everyone fully understood just how amazing Justin Fried was. If struck by Justin Fried's great sword, even a powerful tank like Cola would lose over 1,400 HP. It would take Justin Fried only 2 attacks to finish off anyone else within the team. Moreover, Justin Fried had a very high attack speed. He had no problems brandishing his greatsword twice in 1 second. If they wished to successfully clear this boss, they needed to cooperate with each other properly. Not only did the MTS have to know when to dodge Justin Fried's attacks, the other melee classes also needed to know how to interrupt the boss's attack pattern. Start the raid. After Shifeng finished giving out his instructions, everyone went to their assigned positions, making a perfect encirclement around Justin Fried. Once ready, Cola immediately rushed towards Justin Fried, while Yi Wumian waited at one side for the appearance of the 3 demon guards. Compared to attacking an elite monster, the damage Cola dealt to Justin Fried was much lower. His normal attacks only dealt slightly more than -100 damage to the boss. After Cola solidified his aggro of the boss, everyone else promptly barraged Justin Fried with attacks. However, the team quickly discovered a crucial matter: Justin Fried's defense was seriously too high. During the trial runs, Cola had been the only one attacking. Hence, everyone had not really noticed how high Justin Fried's defense was. Take Lonely Snow for example. As a berserker, every time he struck Justin Fried's back with his two-handed axe, he could only deal slightly more than -200 damage. Even after using armor break on the boss, his damage only barely reached -300. As for the newcomers, the damage they dealt was far less. His defense is too high. Even with her most powerful spells, Aqua Rose only managed to deal around -500 damage to the boss. Shadow Burst. Blackie didn't dare hold back, immediately using the new skill he received for clearing the 4-colored trial. 5 black streaks of light immediately shot out from his staff, landed on Justin Fried's back, and exploded. Damages of -736, -741, -726, -732, -738 appeared above Justin Fried's head. Shifeng was also slashing madly at Justin Fried's back. However, the damage he dealt was far lower than Blackie's. Each of his basic attacks only dealt over -100 damage. However, this damage was further increased when Shifeng triggered one of the Abyssal Blade's effects, inflicting the Doom Curse on the boss. There was also the damage amplification effect from Thundering Flash. As Justin Fried was a Hell Mode boss, both the Abyssal Blade's Doom Curse and the effect of Thundering Flash were greatly weakened. Overall, the 2 debuffs had weakened Justin Fried by 15%. Simultaneously, Shifeng swapped out his Might of 1,000 title for his Demon Hunter title, further weakening Justin Fried. Now, Justin Fried only possessed 80% of his original strength. This result undeniably reduced the burden placed on everyone in the team. Guild Leader, the additional passive skill of your weapon and also the effect of your title are simply too amazing. Thanks to you, the difficulty of this boss has been forcefully brought down a notch, Cola said with a smile. Undeniably, he was the person who profited the most from these debuffs. Aqua Rose's eyes glowed with joy as well when she witnessed this scene. Thanks to Shifeng's skills and title, they now had hope of defeating this boss. It seems that I, too, should get more of such titles in the future. It would make boss raids a lot easier. Aqua Rose looked at Shifeng's title in envy. However, she knew it would be very difficult to obtain such a title. Aqua Rose made a note to herself to ask Shifeng how she, too, could obtain such a title when they left this dungeon. When Justin Fried's HP fell to 90%, Shifeng immediately shouted through the team chat, "Yi Wumian, get ready to aggro the monsters. Everyone, focus fire on the spawns the moment they appear. Fire dance and I will help Cola cope with the boss. Damnable trespassers. Guards. Get rid of them." Justin Fried bellowed. Suddenly, 3 demon guards ran in from outside the arena. Every one of these demon guards were elite monsters. Moreover, each of them possessed 40,000 HP. Fortunately, the demon guards had much lower defense compared to the boss. The team took no time at all to finish all three, especially when they had a powerhouse like Blackie. Everyone then returned their focus to the boss. During the entire battle, Shifeng did not get many chances to deal damage. Possibly due to there being many more people attacking him, Justin Fried's attack pattern right now was slightly different from when only Cola and Gluttonous Mouse were raiding him. The boss could always accurately force Cola into a corner whenever he brandished his great sword, preventing Cola from effectively dodging his attacks. To make matters worse, aside from Shifeng, nobody else in the team could accurately find a way to interrupt the boss's attack rhythm. Although Fire Dance managed to react to the situation and find a suitable location to attack, due to her low strength as an assassin, she failed to interrupt Justin Fried's attack. Hence, Shifeng had no choice but to focus all his attention on interrupting the boss's attacks. Otherwise, if Cola were to make a mistake and eat any of the boss's minor skills, he would definitely lose his life because the healers would not be able to keep up with their healing. Concurrently, Cola's death would also mean everyone else's death. When Justin Fried's HP fell to 78%, he finally used Death Blow in a fit of rage. Meanwhile, the target of this skill was none other than Shifeng. Shifeng's first reaction to the activation of this skill was to turn tail and run. After being marked by this skill, unless players activated skills that provided invincibility, they would unquestionably die when Justin Fried closed in on them. Justin Fried retrieved a silver spear and abruptly threw it at Shifeng. Instantly, a silver flash streaked across the sky and flew at Shifeng, producing a boom as it broke the sound barrier. Players were unable to dodge this silver spear, so they could only try to block it. Hence, just as the spear was about to reach him, Shifeng immediately spun his body around and activated parry. The spear smashed into the abyssal blade, generating brilliant sparks as metal clashed against metal. Shifeng was forced to retreat over a dozen steps before he could shake off the attack and stabilize his body. Both his hands felt numb after blocking Justin Fried's attack, and he had very nearly lost his grip on his swords. He then took a glance at the abyssal blade, finding a clear scar on the blade of the sword. Unbelievable. To think that this move could even damage a magic weapon. If it were a secret silver weapon taking this hit, wouldn't it get destroyed instantly? Even a fine gold weapon might not survive this attack. Shifeng secretly rejoiced that he had not used the silver lake to block this attack. Otherwise, the sword would have been finished. After seeing his spear blocked, Justin Fried grew furious. Ignoring Cola, he charged at Shifeng with large strides. Without hesitation, Shifeng immediately activated Windwalk, increasing his movement speed by 30%. He then started moving in circles around the arena. As Shifeng did not receive any damage from Justin Fried's spear, he also did not receive the movement speed reduction debuff. Hence, no matter how hard the boss tried to chase Shifeng, he simply couldn't catch up. In the end, Shifeng kited the boss around the arena for the full 10 seconds. With both of Justin Fried's major skills dealt with, everyone returned to their positions and resumed their attack on Justin Fried. Later on, no matter how many times Justin Fried used his major skills, the end result was still the same. After a dozen minutes passed, even when Justin Fried entered his berserk state, he still could not change the inevitable. The reason being, Cola had Protection Blessing to stave off the boss's increased damage. Cola also had the Arclight Guard's additional skill, Time Arc. The effect of this skill was the equivalent of providing Cola with 9 seconds of invincibility. It also allowed him to reset the cooldown of any skills he had used during Time Arc's duration. One way or another, Cola had managed to endure and survive through the 20-second duration of the boss's berserk state. In the end, Justin Fried let out a scream of resentment as he fell to the ground, his body leaving behind a pile of dazzling items as it disappeared. Chapter 265, Dark Knight Gaia. Chapter 265, Dark Knight Gaia. It's a jackpot. Our karma must be too good. I wonder what we'll get. This is the hell mode of the demon's castle. A jackpot should give us at least a dark gold weapon, right? Justin Fried's death allowed everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. However, when they saw the pile of items on the ground, everyone knew that their luck had come. Just a brief glance told them that Justin Fried had dropped more than 10 items. It was an obvious sign that this was one of those rare karmic jackpots. Alright, don't get too excited right now. Rest and recover for now. Shifeng simply smiled when he looked at his teammates' excitement. However, he knew that the jackpot this time around was no coincidence. Others might not know this, but the Demon's Castle was actually the hardest dungeon out of all the level 15, 20-man team dungeons, although everyone believed that it was simply a 20-man dungeon with above-average difficulty. In the past, countless guilds had suffered team wipe after team wipe in order to raid the Demon's Castle. According to Shifeng's understanding, the bosses of every Hell Mode team dungeon that possessed the highest difficulty out of all Hell Mode team dungeons of the same level would always yield a jackpot when it was being raided for the first time. This was a reward by the system for pioneering the team dungeon with the highest difficulty. While Shifeng was counting up the loot from Justin Freed, a group of players revived at the entrance of the Demon's Castle. Boss, that Justin Freed's defense and attack are simply too high. Compared to a level 10 dungeon, the Demon's Castle is far more difficult. Moreover, this is only the normal mode dungeon. Even a powerful MT like yourself could not survive 3 hits from the first boss. I don't think there's any way we can raid this dungeon right now, a druid said. It seems that 2 MTS are required for this boss, to share the damage. We can just let a ranger kite the 3 summoned monsters. After experiencing a battle with Justin Freed, Warwolf fully realized just how powerful the boss was. Every time Justin Freed attacked, Warwolf would be forced into a corner and prevented from dodging. He had no choice but to take the full brunt of the boss's attack. If he only had to endure Justin Freed's basic attacks, Warwolf was confident he could make do with the heals he received. However, one of Justin Freed's minor skills, 1000 Sweep, dealt at least -1000 damage to all targets within an 8-yard radius. Meanwhile, the activation time for this skill was practically instantaneous, so Warwolf had no chance at dodging it. When Warwolf ate this minor skill in addition to a basic attack, he would instantly lose at least 2000 HP. Only with all 4 healers in the team focusing their heals on him could they barely manage to get his HP back up to a safe level before Justin Freed's next attack connected. However, shortly after, the boss summoned 3 demon guards. Once the healers spread their focus to the other members of the team, Warwolf was promptly slain by Justin Freed. The end result: a team wipe. As Warwolf's team was about to enter the Demon's Castle for the second time, Shifeng had already started distributing the loot. The jackpot this time had yielded 11 weapons and equipment in total. There were also quite a number of magic crystals and precious materials. Among the weapons and equipment dropped were 3 secret silver equipment, leg guards for rangers, a hat for druids, and shoulder guards for summoners. As this was a guild-only team, and also a pioneer raid, the distribution of items this time was not done using the contribution auction method. Instead, Shifeng assigned the items to specific players while placing priority on increasing the overall battle prowess of the team. Meanwhile, Feingold ranked weapons and equipment numbered the most. There was a total of 6 of such items dropped by Justin Freed. The attributes of these items spoke for themselves. The items dropped from the Hell Mode of the Demon's Castle were all of the finest quality. Lonely Snow received a level 15 Feingold ranked Great Axe, while Cola received a level 15 Feingold ranked Short Sword. Meanwhile, the secret silver weapons the 2 previously used were passed on to their teammates. The remaining 4 items were Feingold equipment, shoes for swordsmen, arm guards for cursemancers, a chest piece for oracles, and a chest piece for elementalists. Shifeng kept the shoes for swordsmen for himself, exchanging it with his level 10 mysterious iron ranked boots. Triumph boots, shoes, plate armor, Feingold rank. Level 15. Defense plus 184. Strength plus 17, agility plus 20, endurance plus 12. Movement speed plus 5. Restricted to swordsman. Additional passive skill dash. Light-footed, increases movement speed by 5%. Shifeng then handed the Feingold ranked arm guards to Blackie, the chest piece for oracles to Gluttonous Mouse, and the chest piece for elementalists to Aqua. The final 2 items were of dark gold rank. One was a pitch black long sword, while the other was a dark grey colored staff that emitted black mist. Demon Bane, one-handed sword, dark gold rank. Level 15. Attack power plus 183. Strength plus 20, agility plus 21, endurance plus 10. Attack speed plus 3. Durability 100. Additional passive skill dash. Demon Bane, deals 20% additional damage towards darkness-type monsters. Although the Demon Bane was only at the level of being satisfactory in terms of attributes, the passive skill that came along with it was perfect for raiding the demon's castle. Shifeng just happened to be able to replace his level 10 dark gold weapon, the Silver Lake. Although the Silver Lake was a personal exclusive weapon, in terms of attributes and attack power, it was much weaker than the level 15 Demon Bane. The reason being, there would be a huge increase in the performance of weapons and equipment every 5 levels. Moreover, when taking into consideration the convenience of the upcoming battles, Shifeng had even more reason to exchange the Silver Lake for the Demon Bane. As for the dark gold ranked staff, it was also of extremely good quality. Black Mist Staff, two-handed staff, dark gold rank. Level 15. Equipment requirement, strength 40, intelligence 60. Attack power plus 154. Intelligence plus 42. Vitality plus 28, endurance plus 33. Chanting speed plus 6. Durability 100. Elemental spell damage increased by 10%. Elemental spells have 18% chance to achieve a critical hit. Ignore levels plus 3. Cast range plus 2. Elemental spell levels plus 1. Restricted to Elementalist. Wow. The attributes on this staff are insane. It's practically tailored for Elementalist. Even though Blackie already had an epic ranked staff, he still couldn't help but exclaim when he saw the attributes on this staff. The eyes of the 2 Elementalists in the team immediately glowed upon seeing the attributes of this staff. This staff will go to Aqua. Shifeng handed the staff over to Aqua Rose without hesitation. Although Taciturn Goose, who was one of the newly recruited 5 demon generals, was also an Elementalist, Aqua Rose was the vice leader of the guild. It would not look well if the vice leader of the guild continued using only a secret silver ranked staff. Moreover, Aqua Rose's techniques and strength was far above Taciturn Goose's, and she would be able to display the staff's true power better. For me. Although Aqua Rose indeed liked this Black Mist staff very much, she had only recently joined the guild. She would feel very awkward if she were to receive such an amazing staff so quickly. Take it. You're the vice leader of our guild. We can't have other guilds looking down on Zero Wing now, can we? Shifeng said, a grin on his face. That's right, vice leader. Our guild is acknowledged as one of the 6 major guilds right now. If the other guilds were to find out that our vice leader was still using a secret silver ranked staff, they would definitely make fun of us. Blackie said. All right, then. I'll take it. Aqua Rose felt that their words were logical. As one of the top management of the guild, every action she took affected the guild's reputation. If others were to discover her poor quality equipment, although they might not outright slander them with insults, they would definitely look down on Zero Wing. It would make others think that Zero Wing was not as good as it seemed to be. After equipping this exquisite staff, Aqua Rose suddenly felt the responsibilities placed upon on her shoulders growing heavier. Following which, after everyone was rested, they resumed advancing towards the heart of the demon's castle. Due to the jackpot from Justin Freed, the team's overall strength was greatly increased. They had a much easier time now when they fought against the elites and special elites, and very quickly, they arrived at the main hall of the demon's castle. The final boss, the Dark Knight Gaia, sat high above on the throne inside the hall. The moment everyone set foot inside the hall, the atmosphere of the room suddenly changed, and even the air started feeling heavy. Everyone in the team sucked in a mouthful of cold breath at the scene inside the hall. This is a joke, right? Blackie looked at the throne in the distance, his mouth gaping wide open in shock. What is going on here? Why are there 2 more bosses with Dark Knight Gaia? Astonished, Shifeng stared at the 2 beauties standing beside the throne. The 2 beauties had a pair of pitch-black wings on their backs, and both of them were giving off an imposing aura that was no weaker than Dark Knight Gaia's. Chapter 266, Holy Light. Chapter 266, Holy Light. Just Dark Knight Gaia alone was a challenge for them to deal with. Yet, there were two more bosses of equal strength now. Even Shifeng felt powerless at this sight. However, the fact that there were three bosses in this hall was not the most important point. The key point was that even a single boss was enough to cause everyone to despair. The difficulty of this quest is too high. Shifeng's head ached when he looked at the three bosses. He never imagined that Weissman's quest would be so difficult. If it were the normal Hell Mode Demon's Castle, Shifeng would still have a way to clear it. However, if he had to face the three bosses before him simultaneously, then there really was no hope for clearing this dungeon at all. Dark Knight Gaia, High Lord rank. Level 16. HP 4000004000000. Fallen Angel Heir, High Lord rank. Level 16. HP 36000003600000. Fallen Angel Lara, High Lord rank. Level 16. HP 36000003600000. Not only did the quest increase the number of bosses, it had also greatly increased their strength. With a frightening 4 million HP, even if their healers exhausted all their mana, they still wouldn't be able to kill Dark Knight Gaia. It was also highly possible that Kola would die with a single stab from Dark Knight Gaia's spear. Guild leader, I think we should withdraw. There must be a problem with the system. 4 million HP is just ridiculous, Kola said, shaking his head while sighing. I think so as well, Brother Feng. Maybe we should go out and reset the dungeon, Blackie said. The others had similar thoughts as well. Even if this was Hell Mode, the difficulty of these bosses was simply preposterous. Since we've already come this far, let's give it a try. There should be a special mechanism in place if the bosses are set to be so powerful. Shifeng did not think there was an error with the system. It definitely had its own reasoning for making the bosses this powerful. So, they might as well test the water. Who knows? They might even discover some secret trick that will allow them to defeat these bosses. Since Shifeng had already spoken, the others naturally did not oppose his decision. At worst, they would simply waste some of their EXP, and EXP was something they could easily obtain. Hence, like the previous time, Kola and Gluttonous Mouse went ahead to gauge the standards of the bosses. Like before, Kola threw his shield at the three bosses, activating Shield of Vengeance. Yet, the moment Kola's shield struck the three bosses, everyone in the team was stunned by what they saw. -1, -1, -1. Only 1 point of damage appeared above each of the three bosses. Their frightening defense rendered everyone in the team speechless. You are seeking death. Dark Knight Gaia spoke in a tone that was neither enraged nor arrogant. Rather, his voice was only filled with coldness and indifference. He spoke just like a machine, emotionless. Gaia then slowly got up from his throne. He did not rush to attack Kola, instead choosing to abruptly focus his eyes on Kola. Kola instantly felt a chill overcome his body. Although this was a game, the pressure he felt was nothing but real. Similarly, the two fallen angels by Gaia's side did not take any action. They did not even give Kola a single glance, as if saying Kola was not worth their attention at all. I refuse to believe it yet. Kola summoned up his courage as he used punishment on Dark Knight Gaia. However, just like before, his attack only dealt 1 point of damage to the boss. Everyone cringed at this result. This time, Dark Knight Gaia finally retaliated against Kola's attack. Gaia casually retrieved a spear from his side, aimed it at Kola, and threw it. Before anyone could react, a flash of light pierced through Kola's chest, followed by a sonic boom reverberating throughout the hall. The attack caused over -2,900 damage to Kola, leaving him with only several hundred HP remaining. This casual attack had nearly taken Kola's pitiful life. Just as Dark Knight Gaia was about to attack for the second time, a pillar of holy light descended from the sky, enveloping Kola. When Gaia's spear clashed against the holy light, it was as if the spear had struck an impenetrable wall. The spear could not advance by even an inch. There was a trick to it as expected. Shifeng smiled faintly when he saw the holy light descending from the sky. He also discovered the silhouette of a person floating amidst the pillar of holy light. Hence, Shifeng shouted in the team chat, "Everyone, together, healers, get Cola's HP back up first." Previously, everyone merely had the intention of giving the bosses a try, they did not hold any hope of actually killing them. Now that a chance had appeared, how could they easily give it up? The atmosphere surrounding the team instantly changed. No longer were they shrouded by despair. Her. Why is it her? When the person inside the pillar of light walked out, Shifeng discovered a familiar face. When he caught a clearer view of that saintly appearance, his mind immediately turned sluggish. The person that walked out of the pillar of holy light was actually the Tier 3 divine official Charlene. Wow! My goddess! Blackie's eyes widened upon seeing Charlene, his drool nearly leaking out of his mouth. Putting aside Charlene's peerless appearance and graceful figure, just that extraordinary aura that she exuded would attract others to her. Gifted with both appearance and aura, Charlene was even more mesmerizing than the snow goddess, Gentle Snow. After Charlene descended into the hall, she did not look at the people behind her. Instead, she focused her attention on the Black Throne, at Dark Knight Gaia and the two fallen angels by his side. Dark Knight Gaia no longer maintained his look of indifference when he noticed Charlene's appearance. Instead, a hint of fear showed on his face. "Gaia, leave that woman to us. You take care of those ants and activate the teleportation gate. It is about time we let this continent be filled with fear and death once more," Fallen Angel Air said. "Yes, Lady Air," Dark Knight Gaia answered respectfully. At the same time, Charlene whirled around to look at everyone, saying, "Adventurers. For his selfish gains, Gaia has turned the past inhabitants of this castle into demons, letting them live a life that is worse than death. Now, he is even trying to open a gate to the demon world, summoning the Legion of Dead to attack White River City. You must stop Gaia from doing so at all costs and prevent a terrible fate from befalling the inhabitants of White River City." Finished speaking, Charlene immediately chanted some divine incantations. She then pointed a finger at the players before her. Suddenly, everyone in the team received a buff. Blessing of Holy Light. Increases all attributes by 200 points. This blessing is insane. My magic damage is over 1,000 point. My HP is also over 5,000. This feels awesome, Blackie said in exhilaration. Everyone else shared Blackie's feelings. Their bodies felt full of power, and they felt that they could easily go back and trample the previous boss, Justin Freed. Just the HP of the ranged players had already exceeded the 5,000 threshold. The other melee players also had their HPs increased past the 6,000 threshold. As for the monstrous MT of the team, Cola, his HP had already gone past the 7,000 threshold. Cola was practically a mini-boss now. After Charlene and the two fallen angels departed to do battle, Dark Knight Gaia immediately charged towards the team of players, intending to massacre them quickly. At this time, everyone in the team no longer looked at Dark Knight Gaia with fearful eyes like before. Even if Cola received close to -3,000 damage from a single spear throw from the boss, the Guardian Knight presently had over 7,000 HP. Moreover, the healers also had their magic damage increased from the blessing. Now, a casual heal from any one of them could replenish over 1,000 HP for Cola. They had no problems coping with Dark Knight Gaia's frightening damage. Taking the lead, Cola immediately slashed his sword at Gaia, following up the attack with a punishment. -328, -641. 2 damages appeared above Dark Knight Gaia's head. Meanwhile, Shifeng had used silent steps and arrived at Dark Knight Gaia's back. Executing Chop, he slashed his sword down at Gaia's neck, immediately causing more than -1,200 damage to the boss. His follow-up normal attacks also caused around -600 damage. However, compared to physical damage classes, the mags had a much greater improvement. Each of Blackie's dark arrows caused over -2,000 damage to the boss, over -4,000 damage if it was a critical hit. As for Aqua Rose, her flame explosion dealt over -1,500 damage to the boss. The other mags in the team could also deal over -1,200 damage with each of their attacks, which was very impressive. On the other hand, Dark Knight Gaia's damage towards Kola was slightly reduced. Each of his attacks only dealt slightly over -2,400 damage to Kola now. One side was strengthened, while the other weakened. Even if Dark Knight Gaia had 4 million HP, everyone still felt confident of defeating him. As Dark Knight Gaia's HP continuously fell, his attack rate also grew fiercer, and the damage he dealt also became greater. From the initial -2,400 damage, Kola now received around -2,700 from each of Gaia's attacks. Chapter 267 Legendary Power. Chapter 267 Legendary Power. This won't do. The damage we're dealing is still too low. If this keeps up, we will definitely be the ones to die. After several exchanges with Dark Knight Gaia, Shifeng had already deduced the most likely ending of this raid. His mind immediately started churning for a solution to this problem. When Dark Knight Gaia's HP fell to 70%, everyone else detected that something was wrong. The spear Gaia brandished was like a python, containing both power and agility. Gaia had a more relaxed time responding to everyone's attacks now, successfully blocking and rendering many of the attacks sent at him ineffective. Currently, Gaia was like the reincarnation of the spear god. Dark Knight Gaia abruptly swept his spear in a circle, sending Shifeng and the others, who were attacking his back, flying. Shifeng reacted quickly and used parry without hesitation, preventing any harm from reaching him. Unfortunately, everyone else in the team was not as quick to react. As a result, each of them received over -2,000 damage from the attack, suddenly increasing the burden placed on the healers. Meanwhile, the main target of Dark Knight Gaia's attack, Kola, had to retreat a handful of steps before stabilizing his body. A frightening damage of -4,300 also appeared above his head. Guild leader, the boss is getting more powerful the longer we fight. I don't think I will last long if this situation continues. At this moment, the Guardian Knight, Kola, was no longer as calm and composed as he was before. Currently, the Dark Knight Gaia would deal around -3,000 damage each time he attacked Kola. If the boss triggered a critical hit or used a skill, he would deal over -4,000 damage. Even if Kola had over 7,000 HP, the pressure placed on him was huge. His HP constantly hovered around the safety threshold, which was a very dangerous situation. This was exactly where the Dark Knight Gaia excelled. The longer he fought, the braver he got. On the surface, Dark Knight Gaia did not seem to use any major skills. However, in reality, he had been using them constantly. Blood Rage. With this skill, the longer Dark Knight Gaia battled, the higher his damage would become. His attack speed would also rise as time passed. Just this skill alone was already sufficient to make any team that dared challenge him kneel and accept defeat. In addition, Dark Knight Gaia also possessed an AoE skill, Blood Domain. The skill had an effective area of 100 yards. When used, a blood demon would spawn behind all enemies within this range. These blood fiends each had 10,000 HP. Contrary to expectations, these blood fiends would not attack players. Instead, if these blood fiends came within 3 yards of their locked target, they would self-destruct. The resulting explosion had an effective radius of 20 yards, and in Hell mode, the explosion would deal -2,000 damage. However, due to Shifeng's quest, the current boss the team faced was an enhanced version of the Hell mode Dark Knight Gaia. Hence, Shifeng did not know how much damage the blood fiends would deal if they exploded. It was bound to be more than -2,000 damage. If they could not deal with these blood fiends quickly, leaving the monsters to self-destruct without control, the end result would, without a doubt, be a team wipe. Yet, if everyone were to run around the hall while having the blood fiends chase after them, it would disrupt the team's formation. Any mistake made during this confusion would easily lead to a team wipe. Hence, the moment these blood fiends appeared, they needed to deal with them within the shortest amount of time possible. Just depending on the blessing of holy light won't be enough to deal with this boss. If we can't increase our damage output, we will die sooner or later. Shifeng took a look at the mana levels of the 4 healers and discovered that all of them only had around half remaining. However, Dark Knight Gaia still had 65% of his HP left. If this situation continued, they wouldn't be able to last until the end. Not to mention, Dark Knight Gaia hadn't used Blood Domain yet. At that time, the burden on the healers would definitely be huge. Brother Feng, we'll definitely be team wiped if this continues. Should I use Stars of Light now? Blackie secretly sent a private message to Shifeng. Stars of Light was the most powerful skill of the epic ranked staff, Mavis's Guard. Its might surpassed even that of a Tier 2 spell. It was a spell that could devastate both heaven and earth. Unfortunately, this powerful spell had a cooldown time of half an hour. Hence, it was a trump card that could only be used once in a boss battle. As a result, whenever Blackie was in a party together with Shifeng, he would always seek Shifeng's advice, letting Shifeng decide when he should use the skill. No, it's still too early for it. Shifeng had long since planned for Blackie to use Stars of Light when Gaia used Blood Domain. The might of the skill would instantly evaporate the blood fiends that spawn. Yet, if they did not use the skill now, they might not even survive to see Dark Knight Gaia use Blood Domain. With two difficult options at hand, Shifeng was at a loss which to pick. In the end, we still aren't strong enough. Shifeng smiled bitterly. Even though their team was already so powerful, it was still not enough to clear this quest. Shifeng truly did not know how those players in the past had managed to complete this quest. However, it was also a fact that the players had already completed their Tier 1 class promotion when they completed this quest. With a team of Tier 1 players with top-tier level 20 equipment and weapons, it would be a simple walk in the park for them to conquer the enhanced hell mode of the Demon's Castle. Also, even if nobody in the team had reached level 20, if everyone's weapons and equipment were of Dark Gold rank or above, Dark Knight Gaia would still have no choice but to submit to them. To put it bluntly, they were lacking in preparations. As expected, our current equipment is still too weak. Shifeng could not help but lament as he watched the boss getting stronger as time passed. Suddenly, however, a flash of realization came to Shifeng. That's right. If it's equipment, don't I have the fragmented legendary item? Shifeng thought of the ring that had been left asleep inside his bag. The Heavenly Dragon's Breath. As a fragmented legendary item, it possessed the strength to change a player's tier. Yes, tier, not level. Previously, Shifeng had never managed to reach the requirements of the fragmented legendary item. Now, however, he had already achieved it. Heavenly Dragon's Breath, Ring, fragmented legendary rank. Equipment requirement, Strength 200, Agility 200, Intelligence 120. Strength plus 40%, Agility plus 40%, Intelligence plus 30%, Endurance plus 30%. Movement speed plus 20%. Attack speed plus 30%. Ignore levels plus 10. All item level requirements reduced by 10 levels. Additional skill 1, Dragon's Authority. Suppress all enemies in the surroundings with the might of the Heavenly Dragon, inflicting the fear status onto enemies within a 30-yard distance, reducing their attack power by 20%, attack speed by 20%, and movement speed by 20% for 1 minute. Cooldown, 3 minutes. Additional skill 2, Dragon Breath. Inflicts 6x damage in a 305-yard line in front of you. There is a 20% chance to induce the fainted state for 2 seconds. Cooldown, 5 minutes. Additional skill 3, Heavenly Dragon's Power. Allows the user to temporarily possess the power of the Heavenly Dragon, increasing HP by 300%, strength by 100%, and defense by 300%, and grants immunity to all controlling effects for 2 minutes. Cooldown, 3 hours. The Dragon Slayer Mechasiru once owned the Heavenly Dragon's Breath. It was originally a legendary ranked item possessing the suppressed strength of the Dragon tribe. Due to damage resulting from a war between gods, its might has greatly decreased. However, the Heavenly Dragon's Breath possesses an incomparably strong magic power and possesses the potential to restore itself. Its past glory may be restored with 3 magic stars and 1 dragon's heart. Current restoration, 04. Blessing of Holy Light. Increases all attributes by 200 points. This blessing had allowed Shifeng to instantly surpass the daunting requirement of having 120 intelligence. Without wasting any more time, Shifeng immediately retrieved the heavenly dragon's breath from his bag. The instant he wore the ring, he immediately felt it transmit a boundless power into his body. Not even the blessing of holy light could compare to this power. Good. The raid officially starts, now. Shifeng looked at the silver dragon-shaped ring on his finger, a smile on his face. Whether it was his past life or his present life, this was the very first time he was feeling the strength of a legendary item, even if it was only a fragment. He then shifted his gaze towards Dark Knight Gaia, his eyes abruptly focusing. Dragon's authority. Instantly, everyone felt Shifeng's transformation. They could feel the might of an ancient dragon coming off him, and even their souls quivered in the face of this power. Meanwhile, as if stuck in a deep quagmire, Dark Knight Gaia's movements turned sluggish. Gaia's attack power was greatly reduced as well, letting Kola gain a breather. Kola no longer felt overwhelmed by Gaia's attacks, and he could even dodge the boss's attacks now. It wasn't just limited to Kola. Everyone else started attacking with greater efficiency as well. Originally, they were on the verge of being team-wiped. Yet, the situation suddenly had a huge change. It was simply unbelievable. What happened? Aqua Rose was shocked. Chapter 268 Everything is insubstantial. Chapter 268 Everything is insubstantial. Although everyone was shocked by Dark Knight Gaia's weakening, they were even more shocked by the person who activated Dragon's authority, Shifeng. Currently, raging winds surrounded Shifeng's body, swirling in all directions and creating a dazzling sight. Shifeng had now become the focus of this hall. When Shifeng took a step forward, his body instantly disappeared and reappeared in front of Dark Knight Gaia. Brandishing both the Abyssal Blade and the Demon Bane, Shifeng sent over a dozen slashes at the boss, the afterimages of his swords creating an impression of a lotus flower. Due to the heavenly dragon's breath, Shifeng's attributes were greatly increased once more. Currently, his strength had already exceeded 500 points, while his attack was well over 1,200 points. His agility had also exceeded 600 points. Whether it was his attack power or attack speed, both were far above the standards of even a Tier 1 swordsman. Right now, Shifeng could even give a Tier 2 sword master a run for his money. This was the power of a legendary item. Even though Shifeng only had a fragmented version of it, the increase in combat power he received could allow him to challenge enemies of a higher tier. Damages of over -1,000 appeared one after another. Some of his attacks had even dealt over -2,000 and -3,000 damage. Dark Knight Gaia, who had previously been like an immovable mountain, was currently being forced to retreat step after step by the torrent of sword slashes. He could not even enter a basic stance due to the incessant attacks. Meanwhile, Kola was having a relaxed time going against the boss, expending almost no effort on evading the boss's attacks. However, Shifeng's onslaught had yet to end. Thundering flash, chop, double chop, earth splitter, thunder flame explosion. Every skill dealt over -2,000 damage. Of them, the level 8 thunder flame explosion had even achieved a critical hit, dealing over -6,000 damage to the boss. Shifeng's damage far surpassed even that of Blackie now. Guild leader, what sort of potion did you take? How did you suddenly become so awesome? Kola was extremely curious about Shifeng's sudden transformation. Previously, Shifeng's single output damage was even below Blackie's and Aqua Rose's. Now, however, his damage had completely left that of the two in the dust. If Shifeng said it was nothing, not even a ghost would believe him. Potion. Kola, you're thinking too highly of potions. This is the trump card of our guild, Blackie said, a grin on his face. He had a fair idea of what was actually going on. After all, he had also been present when Shifeng obtained the heavenly dragon's breath. Brother Black is right. Kola, you're looking down on guild leader too much, Lonely Snow chimed in with a proud tone. The matter of the fragmented legendary item had always been a secret between the three of them. Shifeng had previously told them not to leak any information about it, so nobody else, other than them, knew about it. After all, just an epic ranked item alone could entice a first-rate guild to take action. If it was known that their guild possessed a fragmented legendary item, rivers of blood might start to flow in White River City. It's not a potion. Aqua Rose was also surprised. However, after she gave it a thought, their words felt right. It should not be possible for potions to provide such a powerful upgrade. Yet, if it was not a potion, what else could allow Shifeng's battle strength to increase so tremendously? Suddenly, Aqua Rose started growing more confused about the guild known as Zero Wing. It was clearly a recently established guild. It could even be described as a blank slate. Yet, shortly after she had joined the guild, she received one shock after another. Aqua Rose had even begun to suspect that Shifeng was an elder of one of those super guilds, and that he had come to White River City to play the role of a pig to devour the tiger. Only a dozen seconds passed since the battle resumed, and already, Dark Knight Gaia had lost 5% of his HP. Currently, he only had 54% of his HP remaining. If this trend continued, his life would end before 3 minutes even passed. However, Shifeng was still not satisfied with this result. The reason being, along with the passing of time, Dark Knight Gaia would grow stronger and stronger. Moreover, Dragon's authority lasted for only 1 minute. After the minute was up, Dark Knight Gaia would once again be like the reincarnation of a spear god. With Kola's equipment, he would not last long under the boss's onslaught. Just as Dark Knight Gaia was about to recover his battle strength. I wonder how well this move will perform. The abyssal blade in Shifeng's hand suddenly ignited in flames, the fire-type mana within a 30-yard radius frantically gathering around the weapon. The light from the scorching flames illuminated the dark hall, while the heat evaporated the moisture in the air. Currently, the abyssal blade in Shifeng's hand was like a miniature sun. This was none other than Shifeng's ultimate move, Flame Burst. Due to his increased attributes, the current Flame Burst was much stronger than the last time Shifeng used it. Before anyone could react, the abyssal blade turned into a shooting star, smashing into Dark Knight Gaia's chest. Gaia's previously impenetrable armor was like tofu when it met with the abyssal blade. The abyssal blade easily pierced Gaia's steel armor and body like a hot knife through butter, creating a large hole in Gaia's chest. However, this was not the end of Shifeng's attack. Shifeng then followed up with 5 more slashes, each of his slashes dealing over -6,000 damage. Some of them had even achieved a critical hit, dealing over -13,000 damage. Meanwhile, the armor on Dark Knight Gaia's body was instantly shattered, the sundered metal fragments smashing heavily against the stone pillars at the sides of the hall. These stone pillars completely collapsed at the impact of the metal fragments. Receiving these 6 continuous attacks, Dark Knight Gaia instantly lost over 60,000 HP. This scene absolutely dumbfounded everyone in the team. Right now, Shifeng looked more like the boss here with Dark Knight Gaia as the player. The situation was so shocking that Kola and everyone else in the team even forgot to attack Dark Knight Gaia. Oi! Stop daydreaming. The boss is still alive. Shifeng smiled helplessly as he received everyone's fervent gazes. After Shifeng's reminder, Kola and Yi Wumian quickly reacted and charged at the boss. Maybe because he no longer had his armor, Dark Knight Gaia was actually receiving an additional 30% damage from everyone's attacks now. The raid progressed at a much faster rate right away. You ants have angered me. Accept the punishment of darkness. The moment Dark Knight Gaia bellowed, the entire hall turned bloody red. Immediately, 20 ferocious-looking blood fiends appeared within the hall. Meanwhile, these blood fiends each had 20,000 HP, and each of them quickly ran towards their locked targets after being summoned. Blackie. Shifeng said in the team chat. Got it. It's finally time for me to show off. Blackie chuckled as he waved his staff. A gigantic magic circle appeared above the hall, and in the blink of an eye, a dazzling star emerged from the magic circle and crashed downwards. The stars of light had a very wide coverage. Hence, Blackie easily enveloped all the blood fiends within the skill, the enraged Dark Knight Gaia included. Each star caused over -5,000 damage. After over a dozen stars came crashing down, not even ashes remained of the blood fiends. As for Dark Knight Gaia, he was left in a miserable state after the duration of the skill ended. Everyone else in the team took this chance to use their most powerful moves on the boss, holding nothing back. Before even a minute passed, Dark Knight Gaia's HP fell to 30%. Instantly, the boss went into a berserk state, his body doubling in size. In this state, both his attack power and defense were greatly increased. Even when Kola had Protection Blessing activated, the skill reducing any damage he received by 50%, he lost over 3000 HP the instant Dark Knight Gaia's spear connected with his body. Just in time. Shifeng had been waiting for this moment all along. Did he think going berserk was amazing? In front of a dragon, everything was insubstantial. Shifeng immediately activated Heavenly Dragon's power, increasing his HP by 300%, strength by 100%, defense by 300%, and also becoming immune to all controlling effects for 2 minutes. After the activation of Heavenly Dragon's power, Shifeng's body underwent a transformation. Dragon scales suddenly covered his skin, making him look as if he was wearing dragon scale armor. With the addition of these dragon scales, Shifeng's originally ordinary appearance suddenly became tyrannical. Chapter 269 – Violent Conclusion. Chapter 269 – Violent Conclusion. Originally, everyone was still worried about how they should deal with the berserk boss. However, Shifeng's shocking transformation immediately attracted their attention. Leaving aside Shifeng's new handsome and gorgeous appearance, just by standing there, he was already giving off an insurmountable pressure. This was no longer an oppression due to strength. Instead, this pressure was the instinctive reverence for a primordial life form. Just what is going on here? Aqua Rose asked in shock. It was a known fact that players could not transform their bodies. Yet, Shifeng had actually transformed in defiance of that notion. Moreover, that frightening pressure he was giving off was much more terrifying when compared to the berserk Dark Knight Gaia. Let alone the others, even Blackie and Lonely Snow, who knew about the fragmented legendary item, were greatly astonished by Shifeng's sudden transformation. They never thought that a player could actually become so powerful after activating the Heavenly Dragon's power. I think the guild leader can kill me in a single hit now, Lonely Snow said, a bitter smile on his face. Let alone you, even Kola might not survive a single hit from Brother Feng. With the activation of the Heavenly Dragon's power, Shifeng's strength received a several-fold increase, which meant that his attack power had increased as well. When Blackie thought about how his most powerful skill, Stars of Light, already failed to match Shifeng's previous strength. If Shifeng used a skill, even Kola, who had over 7000 HP, would be reduced to ash. The Heavenly Dragon's power is strong, as expected, Shifeng thought as he shook his fists. He could feel boundless power coursing through his body. In addition, after activating this skill, Shifeng could feel his mind becoming much clearer than before, allowing him to reach a peak condition that he had never experienced. Shifeng's strength now exceeded 1000 points. His attack power was also over 2300 points, while his HP was over 15,900. In addition, his defense had gone past 4,500 points, almost twice that of Kola's. Currently, he could easily be considered a mini-boss. Kola, leave tanking the boss to me. Shifeng wanted to test his new body. Moreover, it would be much more effective for him to tank the boss instead of Kola right now. Apart from having higher attack, defense, and HP, Shifeng's current dodging capabilities were miles ahead of Kola's. Alright. Although Kola was still shocked by Shifeng's transformation, he managed to muster a reply. With more than 15,900 HP, nobody was a more reliable MT than Shifeng. After relieving Kola of his duties, Shifeng immediately slashed a sword at Dark Knight Gaia. Like a lightning bolt, Shifeng's sword smashed into Dark Knight Gaia's body with the might of 1,000. The attack dealt over -2000 damage to the boss, and the strength behind the attack forced the boss to retreat 3 steps. Each step the boss retreated left behind a deep footprint on the hard-tiled floor. This was the benefit of increasing one's strength. Compared to increasing just attack power, if players with physical damage classes increased their strength, not only could they gain additional attack power, their increased strength would also create a suppression effect during battle. This effect would further raise the damage they dealt their enemies. When attacking, players could also cause their enemies to lose their balance. In a battle, If one could not maintain a proper stance, it would be very easy for problems to arise. Hence, compared to purely increasing one's attack power, it would be much more beneficial to increase one's strength instead. This was a kind of invisible support, and many players only discovered the importance of basic attributes after playing the game for a long time. Currently, Shifeng's battle with Dark Knight Gaia was in full swing, and the other melee classes had no chance to get close to the boss at all. The reason being, aside from MTS like Kola and Yi Wumian, the other melee classes could not even survive a single hit from Dark Knight Gaia. In this situation, only the ranged players could continue attacking without worry. Although Dark Knight Gaia had gone berserk, he was merely an insignificant being in the face of the Shifeng who had the Heavenly Dragon's power activated. The battle between the two of them was just like a battle between two boss monsters. Although Shifeng's HP was only a tiny fraction of Dark Knight Gaia's 4 million HP, in this battle, Shifeng was the only one doing actual damage. Whenever Dark Knight Gaia attacked Shifeng, the latter would either dodge the attack or block it. Dark Knight Gaia was unable to deal any real damage to Shifeng. Moreover, every time Shifeng brandished his two swords, Dark Knight Gaia would be forced to retreat. Each of Shifeng's attacks dealt over -2000 damage, but more often than not, his attacks would achieve a critical hit and deal over -4000 damage. A critical chop also dealt over -6000 damage. On the other hand, Dark Knight Gaia could only deal around -2000 damage to Shifeng with each attack. With close to 16,000 HP, the healers could take their sweet time healing Shifeng. They had no need to fear stealing the aggro of the boss at all. As a tank, Shifeng was currently far stronger than the guild's number 1 MT, Kola. After the 30-second berserk period was over, Dark Knight Gaia's body shrank back to its original size. Even though he still had blood rage in effect, he no longer possessed the previous ferocity he had possessed in his berserk state. Meanwhile, the Heavenly Dragon's power had a duration of 2 minutes. There were still 90 seconds left before Shifeng's transformation ended. Without the berserk effect, Dark Knight Gaia was like a venomous snake that lost its fangs. He could only receive a one-sided beating from Shifeng now. Whenever Shifeng slashed his sword, Dark Knight Gaia would have to retreat a handful of steps. The gap between the two of them simply rendered one speechless. "Throw in everything you've got. We need to end the battle as quick as possible," Shifeng said in the team chat. Upon Shifeng's reminder, the others who hadn't dared to approach the boss before immediately rushed up in a hurry. As a result, the damage rate to the boss instantly soared. When Dark Knight Gaia's HP fell to 15%, he used Blood Domain once more, summoning another group of Blood Fiends. However, unlike the first group of Blood Fiends, these newly summoned monsters each had 30,000 HP. As expected, even his skills have changed. Shifeng had been afraid of something like this happening, hence why he wanted to end the battle as quickly as possible. Since the quest had altered the raiding difficulty of the dungeon, a change to the skills of the boss would naturally occur. Since there wasn't much of a change in Dark Knight Gaia's blood rage, then the only skill that remained was Blood Domain. "Everyone, gather in the center," Shifeng immediately shouted. When Blood Domain was previously used, the team had a wide-range AoE skill like the Stars of Light to depend on. However, they had no such skill that could quickly deal with all the Blood Fiends this time. Stars of Light had a 30-minute cooldown, so there was no way of using it for the second time in this battle. Hence, they could only hope to group up and concentrate their attacks on the monsters. Everyone in the team reacted fast. Before 3 seconds had passed, all of them were already standing together. Having the shape of a demonic beast, the blood-red monsters revealed malicious expressions upon being summoned. After locking on to their respective targets, the Blood Fiends let out frenzied roars as they charged forward. By the time the Blood Fiends started moving, Aqua Rose had already finished chanting an incantation. First, she summoned an ice wall to block off all the Blood Fiends from closing in on their group. The ice wall also placed an additional debuff on the Blood Fiends, slowing the monsters' movement speeds. Right after that, Aqua Rose shot an ice sphere at the group of monsters, reducing their movement speeds even further. With the successive use of these two skills, the group of Blood Fiends now moved as slow as snails. However, Aqua Rose was still not done with her spells. She then followed up with a third spell called Blizzard. Not only could this spell deal high amounts of damage, it also had a very good movement speed reduction effect. Without staying idle, the other ranged players started throwing out attacks at the monsters as well. Blackie had also taken this chance to use the most powerful AoE skill currently available to him: Hell Flame. Pillars of dark green flames shot up from the ground, repeatedly dealing over -2000 damage to the group of blood fiends for 5 seconds. However, such an amount of damage was still not enough to deal with the blood fiends. Just as the blood fiends were about to close in on the team, Shifeng suddenly appeared in front of everyone, blocking the blood fiends' path of advance. Die! Shifeng bellowed at the group of blood fiends. Shifeng used Thundering Flash, causing damages of -3125, -4321, and -6040, and also inflicting the damage amplification effect to all of these blood fiends. However, these monsters were still not dead. Next, Shifeng inhaled abruptly and executed Dragon Breath. Before anyone noticed, countless wind blades transformed into streaks of silver light, piercing through everything that stood in Shifeng's path. These blood fiends instantly turned into minced meat, and not even Dark Knight Gaia, who was charging at the team, was spared from this attack. Dark Knight Gaia was sent flying by the attack, and his body was embedded into the distant wall. However, an instant later, the wall behind him shattered, and Dark Knight Gaia was again sent flying for more than 10 yards. Dark Knight Gaia's body was filled with bloody injuries now. Meanwhile, Dark Knight Gaia had received over -15,000 damage from Dragon Breath. The amount of violence this skill displayed was far above Blackie's Hell Flame. Without the threat of Blood Domain, the battle continued for only 30 more seconds before Dark Knight Gaia died in the middle of the hall, letting out an agonized roar as his life faded away. Immediately, many people in the team leveled up. Shifeng had also risen from level 17 to level 18. White River City Region System announcement: congratulations to Zero Wing for becoming the first team to conquer the Hell Mode Demon's Castle. All players within the team will be rewarded with 40 reputation points in White River City, 10 reputation points in Starmoon Kingdom, 300,000 EXP, and 10 silver coins. White River City Region System announcement: congratulations to Zero Wing for becoming the fastest team to conquer the Hell Mode Demon's Castle. All players within the team will be rewarded with 40 reputation points in White River City, 10 reputation points in Starmoon Kingdom, 300,000 EXP, and 1 Tier 2 gemstone of random attribute. System: Hell Mode Demon's Castle has been cleared for the first time. Loot increased by 100%. Chapter 270 Ennobled. Chapter 270 Ennobled. Outside one of the 3 great dungeons, the Land of Death, there were many guilds that had established a base of operations to facilitate raiding the dungeon. Meanwhile, inside Darkstar's base of operations, the Arclight shield is already in our hands now, so the MT problem has been dealt with. The next thing we need to do is to snatch the first clear of the Land of Death right in front of everyone, Lone Tyrant said in high spirits. Lone Tyrant had spent a lot of effort in order to acquire the Arclight shield. In order to quickly collect the required 30 gold coins, he had played the role of the gullible fool and purchased them at an overpriced value of 700,000 credits. However, now that the actual item was in his hands, Darkstar would officially become the second guild in White River City to start raiding the hard mode of one of the 3 great dungeons. Previously, the main reason why Darkstar had been surpassed by Ouroboros was the insufficient strength of their MT. Now, however, the situation was different. With their newly acquired Arclight shield, Darkstar would be competing with Ouroboros on a level playing field. As for the other guilds, Darkstar had no reason to be fearful of them. Even if Zero Wing already had their own Arclight shields, they were only a recently established guild. They did not possess the backing required to raid the 3 great dungeons. At this moment, however, a system announcement rang out. White River City Region System announcement: congratulations to Zero Wing for becoming the first team to conquer the Hell Mode Demon's Castle. All players within the team will be rewarded with 40 reputation points in White River City, 10 reputation points in Starmoon Kingdom, 300,000 EXP, and 10 silver coins. White River City Region System Announcement. Congratulations to Zero Wing for becoming the fastest team to conquer the Hell Mode Demon's Castle. All players within the team will be rewarded with 40 reputation points in White River City, 10 reputation points in Starmoon Kingdom, 300,000 EXP, and 1 Tier 2 gemstone of random attribute. The announcement was repeated 3 times. Lone Tyrant was dumbfounded by this announcement. He was very clear about what sort of dungeon the Demon's Castle was. If not for the fact that the first clear of the 3 great dungeons was too important to them, Darkstar would have long since started raiding the Demon's Castle. However, Zero Wing had gotten the drop on them and secretly taken the first clear of the Demon's Castle. Moreover, it was the first clear of the Hell Mode Demon's Castle. Currently, Ouroboros was the only guild in White River City that could successfully raid a 20-man hard mode dungeon. However, that capability was limited to the level 10 low difficulty dungeons, and not a level 15 high difficulty dungeon. How did they do it? Aren't they just a recently established guild? Lone Tyrant could not make sense of the situation. Did that Yi Feng help them in secret? Even so, they still shouldn't be able to clear it. That's a 20-man dungeon. There is a limit to one person's strength. Boss, do you want us to go investigate? An assassin asked. No need. The 3 great dungeons takes priority. Zero Wing has only obtained the first clear of the Demon's Castle. By the time we obtain the first clear of the Land of Death, Zero Wing would only serve as a foil to make Darkstar look even better. Lone Tyrant shook his head, a contemptuous smile on his face. Although Lone Tyrant acted dismissively towards Zero Wing's achievement, the other guilds in White River City did not. In addition, the independent players in White River City were also greatly astonished by Zero Wing's achievement. Before, not everyone felt that Zero Wing really deserved to be ranked as one of the top 6 guilds of White River City. After all, the only real achievement of the guild was its monopoly of the top 8 positions on the ranking list. Nothing else about the guild was worth mentioning. Now that they had obtained the first clear of the Hell Mode Demon's Castle, it showed that dungeon raiding was no longer a weakness of Zero Wing. This situation had caused many gaming experts who were previously hesitant about joining Zero Wing to change their minds. The reason being, Zero Wing was the second guild in White River City to have successfully cleared a 20-man Hell Mode dungeon. Moreover, the dungeon they had cleared was a level 15 dungeon, the highest leveled dungeon that players could currently enter. This showed that their strength had surpassed the other guilds by a large margin. Just as the players in White River City were fervently discussing this matter, Shifeng's team started distributing their spoils of war. Originally, aside from the Hell Mode bosses of the 3 great dungeons, Dark Knight Gaia could be considered as the strongest boss below level 20. After receiving the frightening enhancement from Shifeng's quest, Dark Knight Gaia had become even stronger than the final boss of the Hell Mode of the 3 great dungeons. Hence, the loot he dropped would naturally be excellent. Dark Knight Gaia had dropped a total of 27 items, 9 weapons and equipment, 1 forging design, 1 tailoring design, 1 potion recipe, 1 cooking recipe, 3 precious production materials, 10 magic crystals, and 1 demon's heart. The last item was also Shifeng's quest item this time around. Among the 9 weapons and equipment, 5 were of dark gold rank, and all of them were items that could level up from level 15 all the way up to level 20. Of the 5 items, 1 was a staff for clerics, and 1 was a cloth armor chest piece for clerics. Both items were given to Violet Cloud. Meanwhile, Blackie received a hat for Cursemancers, Aqua Rose received shoulder guards for elementalists, and Yi Wumian received arm guards for shield warriors. The remaining 4 weapons and equipment were of fine gold rank. The leather armor chest piece and shoulder guards were both given to Fire Dance. There was also a longbow for rangers, which was given to Sentimental Memories, one of the 5 demon generals. Lastly, the Berserker, Water Buffalo, received a great sword. After having distributed all the equipment, the team's battle power greatly increased once again. With such equipment, no other team in White River City could even hope to compare to them. As for the other items, Shifeng promptly kept them for himself. We've got a good harvest this time. Shifeng felt exhilarated when he looked at the designs and recipes in his bag. In the hands of others, these items would only be worth a small sum of money. In his hands, however, these items would be money-making machines. Most importantly, the forging design he obtained was meant to produce the gemstone buckle. This item could allow players to equip an additional gemstone onto equipment that were of bronze rank or above. Meanwhile, players could apply up to 3 gemstone buckles on their characters, meaning they could have up to 3 additional gemstones. The value of this item was no less than the advanced whetstone. As for the other recipes and designs, they were relatively valuable as well. Only, they were not as valuable as the gemstone buckle. After leaving the demon's castle, Shifeng allowed everyone to go ahead with their own agendas while he headed to the city hall of White River City. When Shifeng arrived at the reception room of the city hall, the Tier 4 wizard Weissman was still as leisurely as he was before. Weissman currently stood by the window, a peaceful expression on his face as he observed the plaza outside the city hall. "Young man, you're here. I've already heard about your achievements from that little girl, Charlene." Before Shifeng had even entered the room, Weissman had already detected his presence. At this time, Weissman moved away from the window and walked towards Shifeng. He then nodded his head, a smile on his face as he said, "Not bad. Truly not bad at all. I never imagined a day would come when this old man would misjudge somebody. Ha ha ha. Not only have you slain Gaia, you have also saved the entire White River City. I don't even know how I should reward you for your efforts. How about this? With the power vested in me, from this day onwards, you are a Viscount of White River City. With your strength, I believe you should be able to protect that place. Take this Blacksteel's contract here and head over to that place, then. System, unique quest Demon's Heart completed. Quest rewards, position of Viscount in White River City, Blacksteel's contract, 500,000 EXP, 50 free mastery points, and 2 gold coins. Shifeng was momentarily dumbfounded by the unexpected rewards. These rewards were simply too bountiful, especially the position of Viscount. In the entire White River City, perhaps only Shifeng would understand the importance of this position. Right, I nearly forgot to mention, that little girl, Charlene, said she has some matters that she needs to speak with you about. She is at the stargazing tower right now. If you have nothing else to do, you should go see that little girl. You don't want to miss out on a rare opportunity, Weissman said, giving Shifeng a meaningful smile. Chapter 271, Guild Residence. Chapter 271, Guild Residence. Lady Charlene is looking for me. A bad premonition stirred in Shifeng's mind. Shifeng had a very good understanding of Charlene's personality. She was definitely the type of person that would not act out of altruism, and Shifeng couldn't help but wonder just which item on him Charlene had her eye on again. Forget it. It's better if I just go and see what she has in store for me, Shifeng decided after giving it some thought. Although Charlene was a money grubber, he had always received a great harvest every time they met. This time, Charlene might give him some advanced quest again. If the quest rewards were good, he would consider giving it a try. However, the stargazing tower was located in Blackwing City, and this situation puzzled Shifeng greatly. Since when had Charlene run all the way to Blackwing City? If Shifeng had not known the location of the stargazing tower, he would have definitely wasted much of his time blindly searching for Charlene in White River City. Moreover, it was not easy to go to Blackwing City. Without the appropriate pass, players would find it impossible to go there at all. To put it simply, if any other player wished to meet with Charlene, it would be a very difficult endeavor. Fortunately, it was a simple task for Shifeng. Although he had already depleted the number of uses on the 7 Luminaries gemstone, his pass to Blackwing City, Aqua Rose still had a few Blackwing passes of her own. On second thought, maybe I should postpone meeting up with Charlene. Based on Shifeng's many years of experience campaigning in God's domain, the quest that he could trigger by going to Blackwing City would definitely not be simple. He also had many things he needed to do right now, so it was better for him to just push this matter to a later time. After leaving the city hall, Shifeng called for Aqua Rose and Fire Dance to meet up with him. They then headed towards the Purple Sun Mansion located in the trade area of White River City. The Purple Sun Mansion was originally the official residence of a count. However, this count had mysteriously disappeared inside the Purple Sun Mansion over half a century ago. In the following decades, every new owner of the residence would also mysteriously disappear overnight. An answer was never found for their disappearance, and ultimately, the residence was sealed by the city more than a decade ago. Moreover, the city had even stationed guards in front of the residence, preventing anyone from entering the place. It went without saying that the area the Purple Sun Mansion occupied, as the official residence of a count, was one of the largest within the trade area of White River City. Even though Shifeng was now a viscount, the personal land he could purchase would be less than a third of the Purple Sun Mansion. Guild leader, why did you bring us to this abandoned residence? Aqua Rose asked in curiosity as she looked at the dilapidated residence in the distance, and also at the 8 guards stationed outside the place. Their guild had just recently obtained the first clear of the Hell-Mode Demon's Castle, and the resulting fame had attracted many players to apply to join the guild right now. As a result, Aqua Rose was swamped with work. Although Blackie was also helping out with management, he was mainly focused on managing the workshop side of things. The guild within the game, on the other hand, was left to Aqua Rose to manage. As for Fire Dance, she was responsible for leading the main force of the guild. Each of them had their own respective duties. However, the management of the guild was the most onerous task out of the 3. Zero Wing had been established only recently, so there were still many problems on the management side of things. Aside from the guild perk system still being imperfect, their guild was also not prepared to recruit so many players. Therefore, Aqua Rose could only carefully select whom to allow into the guild. Meanwhile, her criteria for selection were not based on a player's level. Instead, she chose players based on how skilled they were in battle, and such strict selection criteria were very laborious and time-consuming. Aside from recruitment affairs, Aqua Rose also had to manage the daily affairs of the guild, and this, in turn, had made Aqua Rose a very busy woman. If Shifeng had not called her over, most likely, she would still be occupied with the matter of recruitment right now. What do you think of this residence? Shifeng asked, a smile on his face. What do I think of it? Aqua Rose carefully scrutinized the Purple Sun Mansion. Although it was currently daytime in God's domain, with the sun shining brightly up in the sky, the Purple Sun Mansion was surrounded by a depressing atmosphere. It even gave others an eerie feeling. However, this residence occupied a very large plot of land, and it was also situated in the heart of White River City. It was definitely prime real estate. Although it looks shabby, its location is very strategic. Both the bank and auction house are only 2 streets to the west, while the Adventurers Association is 3 streets to the east. There are only 5 such strategic locations throughout White River City, and 4 are already owned by major nobles. Only this place is left without an owner. Moreover, out of the 5 residences, the Purple Sun Mansion occupies the largest area. Unfortunately, it is not for sale, and it is also protected by guards. If a guild can establish a guild residence here, it would be very beneficial towards the guild's development in the future. Aqua Rose replied with eloquence. She was extremely familiar with the real estate of White River City. Her eyes were filled with yearning when she looked at this dilapidated residence. However, since they could not obtain it, there was not much point in talking about it. Not to mention owning private territory within the trade area, they did not have the power to purchase land in even the outermost sectors of the city right now. Indeed, within White River City, the Purple Sun Mansion could be considered the best location to establish a guild residence. Shifeng nodded his head in agreement. He then said with a soft chuckle, however, from today onwards, this Purple Sun Mansion belongs to us, Zero Wing. After Shifeng finished speaking, both Aqua Rose and Fire Dance were instantly dumbfounded. They looked at Shifeng with eyes filled with disbelief. Guild leader, what did you say? Aqua Rose couldn't believe the words she just heard. This prime real estate belonged to Zero Wing from now on? No matter how she thought about this matter, it was simply impossible for it to be true. This Purple Sun Mansion will be Zero Wing's guild residence from now on, Shifeng said with a smile. Guild leader, stop joking around. For such prime real estate, not to mention now, even if another month passed by, it would still be impossible for anyone to obtain it. Aqua Rose had a clear understanding about guild residences. Currently, not a single guild in White River City possessed a guild residence of their own. Yet, Shifeng was saying that this hot property was now under the ownership of Zero Wing. If what Shifeng said was indeed true, then it would be even more shocking than Zero Wing obtaining the first clear of one of the 3 great dungeons right this instant. It was simply unbelievable. I knew you wouldn't believe me, which is why I brought you over to take a look. Shifeng shook his head and laughed. If Zero Wing wished to develop rapidly, a guild residence was a must. Meanwhile, Aqua Rose was the manager of the guild, so Shifeng naturally had to bring her over to take a look at their future guild residence. It would allow Aqua Rose to better plan for the future. After all, it was one thing to obtain the land for the guild residence, actually establishing it was an entirely different matter. It would be better for them to plan ahead. Just as the 3 of them arrived in front of the steel gate of the Purple Sun Mansion, the captain of the stationed guards walked up to them, blocking their paths. This is a forbidden location of White River City. Those unrelated, please leave, the guard captain berated. Don't tell me even I am not allowed entry. Shifeng revealed his title of Viscount. So it is Lord Viscount. Forgive this humble one for not recognizing my lord. However, Magistrate Weissman has personally given orders that nobody is allowed entry into this place, and even if it is you, Lord Viscount, I am afraid that I cannot allow you to enter. The guard captain suddenly grew respectful when speaking to Shifeng. What about this? Shifeng took out the Blacksteel's contract this time. The guard captain was shocked after seeing this piece of paper. After all, this paper was the deed to the Purple Sun Mansion. In other words, from this moment onwards, the Purple Sun Mansion was the private territory of the Viscount before him. Since Lord Viscount has already become the owner of this place, of course this humble one would not stop my lord from entering, the guard captain said carefully. He then added, however, there is something very strange about this Purple Sun Mansion. If my lord is planning to enter, please exercise caution. I understand. Shifeng nodded in reply. Following which, the 8 guards moved away from the entrance, allowing the 3 of them entry into the residence. Meanwhile, both Aqua Rose and Fire Dance were shocked by Shifeng's revelation. He was actually a Viscount of White River City. Nobility was unlike levels. One could not get ennobled simply by wishing for it. Instead, one needed a large amount of reputation to do so. Currently, all the guilds in White River City were busy trying to raise the White River City reputation they had. Although there were already players who had become citizens, there had yet to be a single person who achieved nobility even until now. Meanwhile, nobility could be categorized into 5 tiers, which were Duke, Marquis, Count, Viscount, and Baron. Just the difficulty of becoming a Baron had made all the guilds in White River City lament over their powerlessness, not to mention obtaining the position of Viscount, which was 1 tier above Baron. Chapter 272, Spirited Away. Chapter 272, Spirited Away. Based on Aqua Rose's knowledge about the authority of barons, aside from being able to purchase private territory within White River City, they could also hire their own guards. A baron could hire a total of 10 NPCs to serve as guards for his own territory. However, a baron was the lowest rank of nobility. Only when one was promoted to Viscount would one be counted as one of the true nobles of the city. A Viscount could not only purchase private territory, one could recruit up to 40 NPCs as guards, as well as have 2 personal guards. Having personal guards was a special privilege available only to true nobles. The normal guards hired by players were not capable of growth, unlike personal guards. In other words, after recruitment, the levels of normal guards would not change no matter how much time passed. On the other hand, personal guards could be leveled up. They would also receive bonus attributes from leveling up, making them much stronger than normal guards. The difference between the two was like the difference between a common monster and a boss monster. Meanwhile, if their guild had these personal guards protecting their guild residents, at this stage of the game, the defense of their guild residents would definitely be foolproof. Furthermore, They could even have these personal guards participate in boss battles. Although the levels of these NPCs would be suppressed, they would still be a lot stronger than the average player. With these personal guards, Zero Wing would have a greater advantage over other guilds when contesting for field bosses. Thinking up to this point, Aqua Rose couldn't help but re-evaluate her opinion of Shifeng once again. Guild leader, the more I get to know you, the less I actually understand about you. Not only have you managed to obtain such an excellent location for a guild residence, you are also a Viscount of White River City. If other guilds were to find out about this matter, they would definitely go insane, Aqua Rose giggled, blinking her shining large eyes. Indeed, they will definitely hunt me down like maniacs, Shifeng laughed. The moment a guild possessed their own residence, they would be like a seedling that had finally set down roots. They would no longer be at the mercy of the winds and rain. Only by growing roots could a plant thrive and have the possibility to grow into a towering tree. In the past, a player had once joked that a guild without their own guild residence was like a gang of mountain bandits, while a guild that had their own guild residence was like the lord of a region. The reason being, only with a guild residence could a guild gradually perfect the many benefits they provided. It was especially true for guild quests. At this stage of the game, as nobody possessed their own guild residence yet, the NPCs within the city were unable to privately publish quests to the guilds. Hence, players could only accept some daily quests from the Adventurers Association to earn guild reputation. In comparison to the individual quests that players received from the Adventurers Association, the private guild quests published by NPCs rewarded much higher guild reputation. If a guild was sufficiently powerful, there was even the possibility that a quest rewarding an epic ranked item would appear. Moreover, unlike at the Adventurers Association, the number of quests available to guild members was not just limited to 2 or 3. As long as a guild was sufficiently powerful, there would be several hundreds, even thousands of guild quests being published in the guild residence every day. With so many quests available, players would be able to level up and upgrade their equipment more efficiently than if they were limited to grinding monsters. Also, statistical analysis made by professionals in the past showed that guilds with guild residences made at least double, or even triple, the amount of money of guilds without guild residences. Moreover, only with a guild residence would a guild officially have a stable source of income. The reason being, whenever a guild member completed a guild quest, the guild would automatically collect 15% of the quest reward as processing fee. The fees collected would then be stored inside the guild bank to serve as funding for the guild. This was the reason why guild residences were so important. The location of the guild residence was also very important as this correlated to the number of guild quests a guild would receive. A newly established guild residence would be an unknown existence in White River City. To be precise, it would be unknown to the NPCs of White River City, and that anonymity would prevent many of these NPCs from commissioning quests with such newly established guild residences. If, however, a guild residence was established in a high-traffic location like the trade area, it would be easily noticed by NPCs. As a result, the number of quests the guild residents received would increase. Meanwhile, as the number of quests resolved by the guild increased, the fame of the guild among NPCs would also rise. And the number of NPCs willing to commission quests would also increase in turn. Such a snowball-like development speed would be unstoppable once it started. Hence, if the guilds in White River City were to find out about Zero Wing coming into possession of a guild residence, they would definitely hate Shifeng down to the bone. Fortunately, Zero Wing had already grown past the stage of a fledgling guild. Unrated guilds would not dare to make an enemy out of Zero Wing. Only third-rate guilds or above would pose a threat. However, once Zero Wing officially establishes its guild residence, not even third-rate guilds would dare to become its enemies. While Shifeng and Aqua Rose were having their merry discussion, the three of them arrived inside the main building of the Purple Sun Mansion. After remaining vacant for over a decade, the interior of the mansion was fully covered in a layer of dust. Weeds could even be seen growing in certain locations inside the mansion. The interior of the building looked extremely dilapidated, as if it could collapse at any moment. Not to mention people, even rats would not want to live in this place. It seems this place needs to be completely demolished and rebuilt, Shifeng said in heartache as he swept a glance at the interior of the mansion. 4 privately owned territories, any expenditures spent on it had to come out from the owner's own pockets. However, not to mention building a guild hall meant for an entire guild, even the cost of building an ordinary house was insanely expensive. It was a price that no normal person could afford. Only a large guild with immense wealth could afford such a price. Guild leader, you are the wealthiest player in White River City, yet you're actually crying about being poor? Aqua Rose rolled her eyes at Shifeng. She knew for a fact that Shifeng had spent over 100 gold coins without even blinking when he bought the Arclight shield forging design. Shifeng could only shake his head and bitterly smile in reply to Aqua Rose's teasing. What Aqua Rose did not know was that a fee of 200 gold coins was required in order to construct even the most common guild hall. Meanwhile, such a guild hall only had a capacity of 500 players. If it were a guild hall with a capacity of 1,000 players, the construction fee would be 500 gold coins. With the area the Purple Sun Mansion occupied, Shifeng could build an advanced guild hall with a capacity of 3,000 players, at the very least. However, the price tag for an advanced guild hall was 3,000 gold coins. 3,000 gold was an astronomical sum for any one guild. Even though Shifeng indeed had the ability to construct an advanced guild hall, he still had the burden of 30,000 gold from the Gospel Project quest bearing down on him. He dared not randomly spend his money. The only reason he had spent over 100 gold for the Arclight shield forging design was because he was confident of earning back the money through sales of the shields he produced. In the case of the guild hall, however, it was a one-way expenditure. Just as Shifeng's group arrived at a flight of stairs, Shifeng suddenly felt a gust of cold wind blowing over his face. He could also hear an indistinct voice whispering by his ears, as if calling him to descend the stairs. Instantly, Shifeng felt all the hairs on his body stand up. Without hesitation, Shifeng immediately unsheathed the abyssal blade and the demon bane, raising his 5 senses to their very limits. In this moment, he was fully prepared for any enemies that would show up. Aqua Rose and Fire Dance, on the other hand, reacted a tad slower than Shifeng. However, they too promptly readied their weapons as they fixed their gazes at the staircase. Contrary to their expectations, however, nothing appeared from the staircase. Only a cold breeze blew up from below, causing the weeds within the mansion to quiver slightly. How can there be wind coming from inside the building? Fire Dance asked, feeling there was something very strange about the situation. The virtual world of God's domain closely resembled reality. Meanwhile, their current location was the heart of the mansion. It was an enclosed space, so it should have been impossible for any wind to be present. Likewise, Shifeng also felt this matter was strange. However, according to Shifeng's knowledge, there was indeed something very strange about this Purple Sun Mansion. After all, it was a fact that every previous owner of the mansion had disappeared without a trace while staying inside the building. It was due to these disappearances that the inhabitants of White River City had nicknamed the building the Ghost Mansion. Even the Tier 4 wizard Weissman could not find the reason for the past owner's disappearances. The only solution he had was to send out a team of guards to prevent anyone from entering the mansion. Shifeng also had not learned anything about the Purple Sun Mansion in his past life. Hence, he could only rely on himself to resolve this matter. Only, he never expected to feel such a great pressure just by standing at the entrance of the staircase. It felt as if he was standing in front of a ferocious beast. Moreover, this kind of pressure had a sense of familiarity. However, Shifeng could not recall where he had felt this pressure before. The cold wind seems to be coming from the basement. Let's go have a look at it for now. Shifeng shook his head. He decided to first discover the source of this mysterious wind before making any further decisions. Chapter 273, Forgotten Lands. Chapter 273, Forgotten Lands. After entering the basement of the Purple Sun Mansion, Shifeng took a look around, finding nothing special about the place. The entire room was empty. There was none of the cold wind from before, neither was there the oppressive feeling that could shock even one's soul. There's nothing here. Were my senses playing tricks on me? When Fire Dance discovered no monsters in the basement, she promptly put away her daggers, sheathing the weapons back into their scabbards. I don't know, but it is indeed true that there is no danger here, Shifeng said, shaking his head. As players experienced more and more battles in God's domain, their sensitivity towards danger would also gradually improve. It was especially true for an expert of God's domain. Moreover, this ability of players to perceive danger was usually not wrong. Let's take a closer look around, Shifeng said. If they could not resolve this mysterious situation whereby the mansion's inhabitants were spirited away, should something actually happen, it would be a tragedy if the incident scared away the NPCs that came to commission quests with the guild. If players were the ones to get caught up in this mystery, they would at worst die once, losing a level and some skill proficiency. However, it would be different if an NPC were to get entangled in this matter. If they died, then it would be a true death for them. The main god system would not revive them. Hence, it was imperative for Shifeng to resolve this mystery as soon as possible. Otherwise, this prime real estate would be worthless. After the trio searched for more than 10 minutes, they found no problems with the place. Not to mention a monster, they couldn't even find a mouse in this place. However, Shifeng did not think that the enormous pressure he felt before was an illusion, especially since he had also felt this pressure previously in his past life. It was just that he could not recall when he had felt it exactly. After searching for a long time and getting no results, Shifeng's group had no other choice but to return upstairs. What's going on here? The moment the group arrived upstairs, Aqua Rose immediately called out in shock when she saw the scene before her. Aqua Rose wasn't the only person who was shocked, even Shifeng was taken aback by what he saw. They had simply returned to the hall on the first floor, yet, the scene here was completely different from before. No longer was it the empty, dilapidated hall they had seen. Instead, the sight that greeted the three after they exited the staircase was an intricate labyrinthine corridor. It was as if they had arrived at an entirely different place. It was definitely not the former Purple Sun mansion they had been in. At this moment, a notification sounded from the system. System: players have discovered the Forgotten Lands. All communications to the outside world are temporarily disabled. So it turns out to be something like this. Shifeng suddenly came to a realization. He finally knew why the previous owners of the mansion had all disappeared one after another. It turned out that all of them had been transported to this location. Guild leader, I can't use my return scroll, Fire Dance said, her eyebrows wrinkled. This is just like the time in the trial of God. It seems that this place isn't ordinary at all. Shifeng began observing his surroundings. Shifeng had encountered numerous such situations in his previous life. It was just like the lost lands he had encountered shortly after entering God's domain in this life. He had even obtained the abyssal blade from that place. Although the Forgotten Lands was different from the Lost Lands, both still had their similarities. Most likely, players trapped in this place would be released after they completed a certain quest. However, unlike the time in the Lost Lands, none of them received any notifications of having triggered a quest. Soon after, Shifeng's group of three advanced into the labyrinth and began to explore the map. Shifeng couldn't help but admit that this map was very large. Even after they had wandered around for more than 6 hours, they still hadn't finished exploring the place. In the end, the three of them decided to split up and continue their exploration. In any case, they had not met with any dangers so far, and it would be much more efficient if they explored the map separately. Unwittingly, a day passed by without anything happening. Only on the second day did Aqua Rose find something new in the region she explored. Aqua Rose discovered a large magic array. According to the speculations of Shifeng and an elementalist like Aqua Rose, it should be a magic array that was tier 5 or above. However, as to what this magic array was used for, not even Shifeng with his bountiful experience could guess. Unless there was a tier 5 wizard or a tier 6 mage god before them. Following which, after spending the rest of the day exploring the place, Fire Dance discovered a second magic array that looked exactly the same as the first one. Other than this discovery, the trio found nothing else. They did not find even a single monster throughout their exploration, nor did they receive any quest notifications. Aqua Rose entertained the thought of simply giving up on this pointless endeavor. It would be more worthwhile for her to just kill herself and return to the city. In this godforsaken place, they could not level up, neither was there any quest for them to complete. They were simply wasting their time by staying here. Moreover, she was the manager of the guild, she still had many things she needed to do. How could she afford to waste so much precious time in this place? Moreover, there was still the matter of the guild residents. However, Shifeng discouraged Aqua Rose from taking such an action. The reason being, there was no guarantee she could return to the city even if she killed herself. In the event that she could not return, she would have lost a level for nothing. Listening to Shifeng's words, Aqua Rose had no choice but to give up on this idea of hers as she continued exploring this forgotten lands. When the third day arrived, after exploring a majority of the forgotten lands, the group discovered 3 more magic arrays. In total, they had discovered 5 of such Tier 5 magic arrays. Soon after, the 3 of them met up and shared their map information with each other. The moment their map information sharing was completed, a notification sounded from the system. System: Unique Quest Miracles Unsealed activated. Quest details: Remove the seal on the Forgotten Lands. Quest rewards: Unknown. Remove the seal on the Forgotten Lands. The quest doesn't even tell us how to do so. What are we even supposed to do here? Fire Dance glared at the notification screen in anger. They had been exploring this place for 3 days now, yet, the only thing they got in return was this quest that provided them with no hints at all. The game was simply too despicable. It should be around here, Shifeng said, pointing on the map. To be precise, he was pointing at an area central to the 5 magic arrays. Magic arrays require mana to operate, and normally use mana crystals as a source for mana. However, although the magic arrays were functioning properly when we discovered them, there was no sign of any mana crystals on site powering them. Moreover, these 5 magic arrays seem to be an integrated structure, so there should be a place where they draw their mana from. We've already explored the outskirts of the Forgotten Lands, and the only area we have yet to explore is the central region. There is a high possibility the power source for these magic arrays are situated in the central region. If we destroy the mana crystal there, we should be able to complete this quest. Guild leader, I never expected you to know so much about magic arrays. For a second there, I even thought you were an elementalist or a cursemancer, and not a swordsman at all, Aqua Rose said teasingly. I just studied the topic by accident. There are plenty of books on magic arrays inside the library of White River City, after all. If you manage to read all the books inside the White River City library, you will definitely be more amazing than I am, Shifeng laughed. The library? I would like to go there, but I'll need a permit to do so. Guild leader, since you're the one who mentioned it, you have to take responsibility. Aqua Rose also knew the importance of the library. If an elementalist wished to learn more powerful spells, the best way to do so was at the library. Unfortunately, she lacked the permit to enter the library. The only choice she had now was to steadily raise her reputation in White River City. Okay, I'll get you a permit to the library after we leave this place. Shifeng shook his head and laughed again. As a demon hunter, he could obtain a permit to the library any time he wanted. Moreover, now that he was a Viscount of White River City, as one of the true nobles of the city, he could easily obtain a handful of library emblems. Following which, the 3 of them ran towards the central region of the Forgotten Lands. 4 hours later, the trio arrived outside the central region. If they wished to enter the place, they needed to go through a very long crystalline pathway. However, there was a giant 3-headed wolf made out of blue crystals blocking the entrance of the pathway. So there is a monster here after all. Fire Dance's eyes glowed with interest when she saw this 3-headed wolf. After several days of no combat, her hands were already itching for action. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,